Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome along to the NLR Esports League. We are here tonight for this afternoon, even for season 3. It is tier 1. It is round 2 of the championship as we've taken the British Grand Prix. Of course, here from the home of British motorsport is it, of course, Silverstone. My name is James Head. Delighted to be taking you through the stream, of course, as always, on this fine Sunday afternoon, a sunny Sunday afternoon in Sunderland. Joining me in the commentary box, though, as always, for the rest of this campaign, it is Mr. Aidan Carter. Aidan, how you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you, James. Yeah, it's a nice sunny day, isn't it, for once in the lovely land of the UK. But yeah, looking forward to it. It's going to be really exciting. Obviously, unfortunately for myself, missed the first round, but super excited to see how this round's going to go down. It's an incredibly competitive field and obviously a very kind of different format to what we're used to in current day league racing for Formula One. So yeah, it could definitely be an exciting race, and especially at a track like Silverstone, it's always a track that's really close, isn't it, in terms of competitiveness between the drivers. So it's definitely going to be a very interesting night.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's going to be fantastic, of course. I think in terms of what we saw from round one, we saw quite a lot of carnage actually in Australia. Hopefully, the carnage just subsides slightly, going in, of course, in towards Q1. The drivers are just readying up now into the lobby. To take you through the championship standings, however, though, in terms of the teams, NLR leads away on 56 points, leading their own team event, which is unbiased totally. Juventus Racing in second on 28, with FEO in third on 21, and they fell by the wayside actually in Australia. Victor's Racing Team in fourth on 14, with Team Mentalism in fifth on 8, IRT in sixth on 7, then GSP in seventh on 4, ERT in eighth on 3. QRT didn't pick up any points, both their drivers DNF'd, of course, last week in Australia, and we do have 10 teams in the, not on the graphic, but we do have 10 teams actually in the lobby. PGS, formerly TTG, of course, merged during the week. Glad to be a member, I've got to say, of PGS as well, just throwing it out there. But PGS are the final teams, Peppy Vogel, and I believe it is also, when my list loads up on the left-hand side, it is, of course, TTG Oliver, the Norwegian, who is going to be taking you through, of course, in terms of qualifying for PGS. Let's have a look, though, at the track map in question. You don't really need to see the track map. 5.8 kilometres and then 3.6 mile, 18 turns away from our drivers, of course, out on track with 2 DRS zones, one down the Wellington Straight and then one down the Hanger Straight in towards Stowe at turn number 15. And Aidan, this is a track that you've been to in real life many a time, I think, in your lifetime. This is a real test for the drivers, especially because we've got beautiful blue skies and sunshine. Tyre wear is going to be quite high.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting track, I'd say, Silverstone. It's a unique challenge, and like you say, I have been there many a time. For those of you that don't know, I live literally 15 minutes away from the circuit, and I went to school there, so it's definitely something that is it's ingrained in the back of my mind is Silverstone all the time. It's basically been part of my life for a good half of my life at this point. But yeah, it's an interesting circuit, definitely. There's nothing else quite like it on the calendar. It's very high speed. Obviously, it's one of the more traditional classic circuits. It's had its modern elements added in, of course, with the new kind of village farm section added in 2010. But other than that, it's remained fairly true to the old layout that we had back in the 80s and the 90s. So yeah, it's definitely a unique challenge, very high speed. It's in real life, it's traditionally very hard on the tyres. It's obviously a track that we know to have many a puncture out for or many a tyre failure in the past. But on the game, weirdly, it's not actually that hard on tyres for some sort of reason. It's one of the tracks actually on the calendar where you could start, say, on the hard compound tyres and pit before the halfway point for the medium compound and still be fine. So it's a bit of a weird one, definitely, this track. And it's definitely a track that, like I mentioned very briefly earlier on, that because we know this track so well and it's been on the game for so long and we race it so often in many other leagues, everybody is very well versed with this track. They know exactly what they're doing. It's an easy track to get pace at, is Silverstone, so I expect the field to be very close as it usually is around here.
Yeah, definitely. So, a jab there in the comment section saying, comments this in Team Mentalism versus James Head and PSG. Not part of PSG, unfortunately. Kylian Mbappe, if he wants to, can sign me, I think, to PSG. But I think that is going to be a long hope and probably in another lifetime way until that does happen. Peppy Vogel is the first man out on track, part of the PGS team, which I think is what Jav actually mentioned there. Patrick, I know there is a 20-second delay. I can't really help it, so apologies that you are experiencing the 20-second delay. from what you all seen, of course, in the session. Pepe, though, was the first man out on track, and he now comes through Bale and Club onto the Sir Lewis Hamilton straight in towards turn number 1, of course, at Abbey, coming out of the final corner on the run down towards turn number 1. We'll see what the man can do, the Dutchman can do, coming to the right-hander turn number 1, to the left-hander at turn number 2. Yeah, very good form in EML Premier in midweek, so hopefully he can carry on that form now coming through Village at turn number 3, and then to the left-hander turn number 4 at the Loop, now coming through in towards turn number 5 at Aintree. Aintree, of course, formerly a British Grand Prix venue for 2 years, I believe, until it actually started hosting the Grand National after the war. And of course, on this former airfield circuit, it is a very good track as Pepe Vogel through the first sector, 27.9. Now coming in towards Luffield through the right-hander. Hayden Crosby sitting there on the left-hand side for British Touring Cars, coming now down through the Woodcourt, now on the run down into the old turn 1. Of course, Colburn and Hamilton famously making contact nearly in 2008 around here, coming through Cops. And then on the run towards Maggots and Beckett, which is pretty much mirrored in the S sections of the likes of America, the likes of Japan, pretty much the GOAT S section, this Maggots and Beckett. Then through Chapel on the exit down the Hanger Straight, and a 104.3. There's not too far off in the middle sector compared to what we expect. But as track evolution will provide, it will get quicker as the session goes on, as Pepe now comes through the right-hander of turn 15 at Stowe, and then in towards 16, 17 and 18 at Vale, in towards Club Corner, which will be the final corner on the circuit, as Pepe now comes through 17, coming out of Club Corner at 18. Going to be around a 29, I think, to start off the night, maybe even slightly less. 28.6 to start off the night. Not a bad lap at all, and he's on that set of mediums, so he will get quicker.
Yeah, definitely will go quicker. We're going to see it a lot in the start of this Q1 session, especially people tyre saving for the latter stages of quali, of course. And depends, of course, what kind of tyre compound these guys have chosen before the session as well, whether they've gone with something balanced or soft up or harder. But we're going to see a lot of people kind of run very cautiously at the start of Q1, and then towards the end of Q1 we'll see the majority of the soft tyre runs. Pretty much everybody else is out there on a set of inters because they can, I guess, at this point in the session, and they don't want to waste a set of mediums. But I think potentially may get 3 sets of mediums here with if you choose the right quality tyre setting. So I think it's not really too much of a worry. Plus, a track like Silverstone, you're quite unlikely to see safety cars at a track like Silverstone, so you're not really needing to hold on to a set of tyres for the race in case of that. It's not really a track that you see a lot of safety cars at, and as I mentioned, of course, as well, tyre wear is not particularly high here, so you're not really going to have to worry about that all that much. So yeah, I don't think there's as much of a worry about having to tyre save at the start of Q1 as we have seen at maybe other tracks that are coming this season, but we're still going to see it anyway. So the latter stages of Q1 will get a bit more interesting, and where everybody will start to push to make sure that they don't get eliminated in Q1. And of course, being eliminated in Q1 at Silverstone is actually quite a bad thing, isn't it? This is actually, considering in real life it's probably one of the easiest tracks to overtake on in real life. In fact, on the game, is actually quite difficult, isn't it? Because the runs onto the Wellington and the Hanger Straight are quite high speed. There's not really the slow speed at the beginning or the end of the straights, and they're not particularly long straights either. So this track is actually fairly difficult to make any sort of ground in the race, because it's quite easy to get stuck in a DRS train here.
Yeah, it is fairly difficult, certainly, and I think as well, coming out of Luffield on the run down towards Cops, potential overtaking opportunities there as well. Toby just coming through that part of the track has actually invalidated the thing through the final couple of corners, but he's there down in 19th position. Many drivers, by the way, sending a set of intermediates, as what we saw, of course, in Q1 last week in Australia. They're taking the F1 Esports approach, I think, towards this, as Pepe is out on top from Leo in second, Justin there in third. 6 minutes of qualifying is gone. Backy, the former QVR man, of course, representing ERT tonight. Not ERT tonight, in fact. Representing, of course, Juventus Racing. He is there down in 17, back in the pit lane. He's probably going to try and go on that set of soft compound tyres. There was an interesting mention, actually, from Felix in the comment section as well, saying there might be a chance of rain come the end of the race. If it's around 45 minutes, and it's showing on the graphics as 45 minutes for the drivers, that could perhaps come before the end of the race, or could perhaps come after the race. It all depends on whether we get any safety cars, any interruptions really in the race. That will all depend, I think, as Pepe's out on top, Leo in second, Justin there in third. Justin currently in third. The FER team looking to try and rebound, I think, from last week in Australia. Their disappointment, of course, from last week. Nord there saying he forgot it was full qualifying. It is full qualifying. That's why there's Q1 in the top left-hand side of your screen. As Enzo comes through the final couple of corners, and now the Ferrari, the VRT man, on the run down into the left-hander of or the right-hander, I should say, turn number 1 at Abbey through Farm, and then toward the village section of turn number 3. And Enzo looking to try and get VRT, but not like that, coming through turn number 3, and has already backed off.
Yeah, already backed off of his time. That's not what you need as well, especially because Enzo is the first driver out there on a set of softs at the moment. He's the first one to do a soft tyre lap, and yeah, already making a mistake early on. Luckily, it's early on in the lap, so if he's got enough fuel in the car, he can come back and go for another run on the same set of tyres. It's not going to be really much of a hindrance. It's just as long as he's got enough fuel to do so. So yeah, not ideal for Enzo, but not the end of the world. It's just kind of one of those things that happens, isn't it, when it's the first lap out on a set of soft compound tires, especially after you've just been out on a set of inters potentially. It can be quite difficult to get to grips with the new grip that you now have. But yeah, a little bit of a shame for Enzo, but not the end of the world.
Definitely not the end of the world. Andretti, I think, is going to be the next man to come on to a lap as well. The VRT man currently there in 9th, of course. Enzo's still not on that lap. He could set, obviously, a valid lap if he's not invalid, as Andretti now comes to the final couple of corners on the run down the Sir Lewis Hamilton straight in towards turn number 1 at Abbey, through the left-hander turn number 2 at Farm. Pepe Doyle on top, Theo in second, Justin there in third. 9 minutes gone, pretty much in qualifying, 9 minutes remaining of Q1. Q1 as well will really depend on, especially the further down the field you get, how quick these drivers are going to be in this session, and we should see around a 3-4 tenth improvement, I would say, lap upon lap, and probably qualifying session upon qualifying session, as Andretti is purple in the first sector, 27.7 in the first sector from the ERT man. Did do quite well. I think it's his first appearance for ERT, but he has done quite well in team events in the past. I remember him certainly from the 24 Hours of F1 event, which I know is going to be going ahead towards the end of the year once again, which I'm glad to report, as Andretti comes towards the right-hander at turn number 9 at Cops, and looking too bad at all. Threw off camber actually coming through the corner. It's such a difficult corner to actually get the curve on, because you can catch the curve and then take a complete left angle almost towards the left-hand side of the curve and then spin off the car, which I've seen in the past, as Andretti is purple in that middle sector, a 104 flat. Pepe out on top, Theo in second, Justin there in third, as Andretti now in toward the right-hander of Stowe at turn number 15. And then in towards, I still keep on getting confused with Stowe and Copsville. I think it is Stowe coming through 15. Andretti in towards 16. Then through the right hand of 17 in towards Club Corner at turn number 18 as Oliver now goes quickest. Andretti, I think, will beat him to the line. He does by 10th of a second in the end to Andretti out on top, Oliver in second. And now we begin to find driver's pace out on track in terms of who's improving. Artem on a lap, Julian as well on a lap as well. He's at 27.4, and Pepe actually now goes quickest with 27.8.
Yeah, 27.8 for Pepe, not a bad lap time, but still, this is a little bit off where I was maybe expecting some of the soft tyre runs to be. I'm expecting the soft tyre runs to be closer towards the 26s more than anything else you would assume around a track like Silverstone, as Enzo now goes to the top on that second lap of soft, so just proving my point that his little mistake didn't really matter that much in the end. He ends up going fastest, but again, not quite on the top kind of pace you would expect maybe around Silverstone. So maybe a few drivers just still bedding themselves in or waiting for the final run in Q1 before they can really start to push themselves. But yeah, as Julian crosses the line, just 0.02 of a second behind, so getting very close, and there we go. That's a bit more like it. Ruti Hullet in NLR. Well, not a surprise. I think it's not a surprise to see Ruti Hullet at the front of a qualifying session. It seems to be his natural state, but at 27.2 goes on to the top as R10 behind in the other VRT car makes it a Ferrari 2.3 at the moment in 27.3. So Ruti had it half a second ahead of the rest of the field, but Artem's managed to at least put himself within 0.2 of pole position currently in this Q1 session. So yeah, I was about to say that we were a bit far off, but Ruti and Artem are a bit more up to pace to where we would expect for Silverstone.
Yeah, definitely so. Stefano as well there in 14th is on a lap. Hein Heide now coming through the final couple of corners, of course, a part of the Mercedes team of QRT. Hein Heide now towards the line goes third. Not a bad lap there at all. 27.5, goes around a tenth and a half slower than Artem. Going in there with a lap as well, I believe it was Xenon going ninth, Team Mentalism. Stefano, though, was quickest in the middle sector on the run toward the line, and that's more like it from Stefano.
Lovely.
The F1 Esports Challengers man out on top from Ruti there in second, Artem there in third. 0.2 per second is the gap between first and second, and a big jump down really from Artem to Hein Heide there in third and fourth, and then we've got Enzo and Julian, of course, 2,000 separating each other out on track at this stage. Spicer coming to the final couple of corners. He's on a set of medium compound tyres, interestingly. Comes to the line, goes 12. That's not enough, I don't think, for the GSP man to try and get in towards Q1. Justin there just going fourth as well, so I think FBR look quite comfortable. Baki as well, the former QVR man, going second for Juventus Racing. He has really, I think, excelled since, obviously, of course, leaving QVR and then joining Juventus Racing, he seems to really came to life as Leo comes towards the final couple of corners on the run to the line, and he comes to life, goes into 6th position as well. But with 6 minutes of qualifying still remaining, Stefano out on top, Baki in second, Rucci there in third, Erpek also on a lap, the other NLR man. 103.5 is a bit off what we've been seeing from the front guys.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's quite fast enough at the moment, but it still could be a good final sector. You can make up quite a bit of time in the final part of the lap, so we'll see him through the Vale and Club chicane and up towards the line to see what he can do as he hums onto the Hamilton straight and crosses the line. It's going to be a 27.2, so it's a good final sector from Erpek, but yeah, definitely a little bit more time, maybe the middle part of the lap, as NLR are now 3rd and 4th. So good qualifying session so far for them in Q1, but of course there's still plenty of time to go in the session. As it stands right now, though, if Q1 were to end, we have our first eliminations. Both GSP, both Mentalism cars, and 1 ERT car in Pappy would be knocked out. But Pappy is on a lap at the moment. He's not got a representative time on the board. So if he can get out of that drop zone, that would knock one of the QRT cars. That would be Zorzo in the Mercedes. He would drop into the elimination zone. So as it stands right now, GSP and Team Mentalism both in a spot of bother here.
Definitely so, and Oliver there in 14th as well, is hanging on by an absolute thread. He's only 6,000th of a second ahead of Zozo. We saw, I think, in Q1 last week in Australia, where it was, I think, 1,400ths of a second separating between Q1 and Q2. Pappy coming through the middle sector, that's more like it, through the middle sector. 103.5, gets a little bit of fake slipstream there from the QRT man. I think that was Zozo just backing off on a lap, as Pappy now comes in towards 15 at Stowe and comes into the final couple of corners. The Williams looking pretty good, I've got to say. The ERT man, they should get him comfortably towards, I would say, Enzo, Julian, Heinheide, that sort of area. Might go actually in between the Mercedes and the Ferrari on the run to the line with Pappy. And he goes right actually ahead of Heinheide, so pretty much where I expected him to. He goes, that should see him in towards Q2 quite comfortably. Then again, though, anything can happen probably here in this qualifying session. Stefano, Baki and Ruti currently there, the top 3. Jav saying in the comment section as well, he just woke up and needing a full-size pizza. Keki apparently is built different. And Keki can now enjoy, I'm absolutely sure, that pizza because I think both NLR drivers are through into Q2.
Yeah, they both are at the moment. Yeah, top 3 have retired from the session, as you would expect. They're not going to go out again. Erpek is still sat, is just coming back into the pit lane. Actually, oh no, is he going for another run? He looks like he's going for another run on the same set of tyres. So Erpek actually managed to do that time with a bit more fuel in the car. So that's actually quite a smart move from Erpek. If he's got the pace, then give yourself a little bit more fuel and do a couple of runs on the same set of tyre. It builds your confidence a bit more. It builds a bit more into you. So we could see a little bit of an improvement here from Erpek. So we'll keep an eye on what he can do on this lap. So smart choice there from the McLaren driver, especially if they know that they're definitely not a threat of being dropped out in Q1. Give yourselves the laps, give yourself the practice, and through the first sector, it's slightly down, but you would expect that potentially on an older set of tyres. So we'll see what we can do. I think the first driver kind of around the elimination zone to go onto their final runs by the looks of things is ERT and Duretti, currently P14 in the session, a 28 flat at the moment. You've got to say, if he wants to be on into Q2, you've got to at least be, I'd say, a 27.8 to be safe.
Yeah, 27.8, 27.7, I think that sort of mark. I think Oliver, I know, has got pace. Also, Onikatsuni did manage to get through into Q2 as well, I believe, for Team Mentalism last week. Erpek is coming through the final couple of corners as Justin was retired out of the session. And Erpek finds a purple middle sector out of nothing. 500 standos still in his lap. So it's a very consistent lap, but he needs to try and find something. He doesn't really need to do much, to be honest. The red fuel light is blinking on and off now as Erpek comes in towards Bale and Club, in towards the final couple of corners through 16, 17 and 18. Diamond, by the way, listing the 2 reasons that he's actually here for, supporting FBR, and I see Geordie Bottle not here for the commentary either. Erpek going a 10.5 of a second behind, indeed, on his own lap time, so he stays in 4th. More than enough to get through, but now we get the final runs. Peppy to one to watch out for. Geordie is just coming to the final couple of corners. Andretti, I think, is already on a lap. The ERT man coming in toward the final couple of corners. Has looked pretty consistent through the first and middle sector. Power cover just beginning to build over the circle with a minute and a half left in qualifying. The final backy, Ruti top 3. Andretti now on the run to the line. That's more like it, 27.8. But he's only put himself 1,000th of a second ahead of Pepe. And if everyone else improves in behind, which I think some of them are currently, it might remain to be seen whether Andretti gets through into Q2. He is literally on the borderline there.
Yeah, I'd say that's really risky from Andretti. He's got to hope for a few mistakes on the drivers behind. Pepe's already up in the first sector on his latest lap. So, yeah, I don't think Andretti's fully safe with that run, unfortunately for him. That's not going to be what he would want. I'm just seeing what other drivers are doing at the moment. Zenon is a 10.5 up in the first sector. He's found some time so far on his lap. Toby is only 2 tenths up at the moment at the back of the field. That's not even going to get him off the bottom of the table at the moment. So unless there's anything special in this final sector, I think we potentially are going to be losing one of the GSP cars at least here in Toby as he comes to the final 2 corners out through Vale and Club. See what he can do as he loses the rear. That's the lap over and done with, unfortunately, for Toby. He will cross the line. Does improve to 15th with a 28.1. So there was a lot more time in that final sector, but there's drivers behind him already improving, you've got to say. Although, bad news for QRT, Zorzo has invalidated on his lap. I don't know if he's got enough time left in the session to get back to the line to do another run, but he is really on the back foot here in the session. Xenon's coming up towards the line now, as I think Spicer, the other GSP cars, managed to put himself 11th.
He has indeed. Noni Katsuni, I think, is back off his lap as well for Team Mentalism. Zenon now on the run toward the line, puts himself just in the drop zone, 3,000th of a second. Andretti not on a run. Toby is obviously backed off a run. It's all up to Oliver, really, at this point. Zozo's invalidated as well. Oni Katsuni is actually on a lap. He looked pretty slow coming through through Woodcut in towards Cops. So remains to be seen whether we can actually improve. The Team Mentalism man, 27.833 to beat, on the run to the line. And he just about beats it, 27.760. But what that does is actually put Xenon down below them all, but below, obviously, in 16th, though, his own teammate. Julian there going 8th. Heinheide going 5th as Oliver now comes through the final couple of corners. The PGS man really needs to lay this all on the line. The Norwegian to the line. Oh, it's 18, 27.845. But look at how close it is between getting into Q2 and finishing outside of the top 15 in Q1. Xenon there 16th with a 27.830. 3,000th of a second behind him is Andretti. Oliver there in 18, 12,000th of a second behind Andretti. Toby there in 19, Zozo 20th. Of course, they invalidated both of their runs. They're out of the session. So that means one Team Mentalism man, one Team ART, one PGS, one GSP, and one QRT out of Q1.
Yeah, it's surprised not to see a full team out in that session. It's one from each. So, yeah, a bit of a shame there for Oni Kitsune managing to get in. It was a bit of a double-edged sword for Mentalism there, wasn't it? Oni Kitsune manages to get in, but in turn knocks his teammate out. So, not quite what they would have wanted. Andretti as well, we were right. Andretti's lap time wasn't enough, unfortunately. Wasn't quite able to get there. But you've got to say that the big loser in that is probably Toby for GSP. We saw on his lap he had a huge mistake coming out the club chicane. There was plenty more time in it. You assume potentially he could have got through without that mistake. And same with Zorzo as well. We didn't see what Zorzo could do. He did invalidate that final run. He didn't have enough time to get back to the line to get that run in. So Zorzo not representative of what his potentially is, and he's on the very back of the grid.
He is indeed. Also, they're down in 20th position. I think with Toby as well coming back to him, the GSP man should be very happy with his lap. Apart from that mistake, he lost a good 3.5 tenths per second, I think, at least coming through those corners. So if that was the case, he would have been probably ahead of Spicer around Yordi sort of area, and they're in 19th. He'd be very, very gutted, I've got to say. But he's now got to basically put himself on, put himself now into the minor frame, put himself into the race, and hopefully that race, of course, will continue on, and hopefully he can gain a lot of positions within that race as well, starting, of course, in P19. But that is the end of Q1. There's Stefano Adams up from Baki there in second, Ruti there in third, with Urpek in fourth. So Team NLR, current championship leaders, of course, and the teams are third and fourth. Heinheide there in fifth, with Justin in sixth. Artem there in seventh, good job from him, with Julian in eighth and Enzo in ninth, and Leo there rounding up the top 10. And Peppy Vogel in 12th. Jordan 13th, Spiderman 14th, Oni Kitsune just about scrapes through there in 15th by 700ths of a second. Xenon there in 16th, supporting the Ukrainian flag, which is very good to see. Andretti there, and Oliver and Toby and Zolzo all out of Q1. And of course, for Q2 now, fast approaching, the drivers now have to get into their good frame of mind once again. A lot of NASCAR chat going on, by the way, in the chat. I know you're chatting in there, Hayden, about the NASCAR. And Raikkonen, of course, is going to be competing, I believe, in his first NASCAR race. So that should be quite interesting. I've been watching the 12 Hours of Sebring as well. Max Verstappen famously getting a neck cold damage, which was brilliant, I've got to say, to watch from a non-standing point of a Hamilton's perspective. But Q2 now about to begin. The real life conversation, I'm sure, will keep going in the chat. Let me know who you are supporting in the chat as well. But 15 drivers now about to do battle, of course, around Silverstone. 3 minutes now knocked off the time, so it's 15 minutes this qualifying session for Q2. And then, of course, for Q3, it is 12 minutes worth of qualifying. And it's really, with Toby's mistake, that just highlights, I think, how difficult this track can be in terms of getting on the throttle, getting on the power, coming off the corners. And Toby, with that mistake coming out of turn 17, coming in towards Club Corner, that ended up him out of Q1. So one mistake can be very costly around this track.
Yeah, definitely can. We saw it in that session that with Zorzo and without Zorzo and Toby's mistakes, and they'd managed to get a clean run in. The field would have been separated by less than a second, the top 20 in that session. And I think it proves that one minute mistake around Silverstone, you're going to get punished very heavily because the field is so close. So if you make a slight mistake in a traction zone, you could drop 4 or 5 places on the grid. So it's one of these tracks where it's easy to get pace, but you have to be inch perfect to get the best result in qualifying. Otherwise, you're just going to get swarmed by the cars behind, and it is very, very easy to do that. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. I think I just had a look back at the end of that qualifying session and to look at the gap between 10th and 11th. The gap between 10th and 11th in that previous session, by the way, was 1,000th of a second. So if that's anything to go by, Q2 could be very close. So we'll keep an eye on that one and see what they can do. And I think this time around we're less likely to see drivers retire from the session unless we see anybody dip into the 26s in the session, I would say. I think if you can get in the 26s, you are more than safe for this qualifying session. And say cut off here, maybe a 27.3 you've got to say is probably going to be cut off here, you would say?
Yeah, potentially so. I'm thinking more 27.4, 27.5, perhaps. I know from qualifying sessions in Australia, there wasn't really much gain between Q1 and Q2. And again, there wasn't much gain between Q2 and Q3. So if Australia's anything to go by, it could be quite interesting in terms of potential improvements, as Ruti is the first man to start up on this run, coming through the final couple of corners, through Club Corner at turn 18, now down this Lewis Hamilton straight, take the shot for every time I say that in this commentary, on the run down towards the right-hander of turn number 1 through Abbey, then through the left-hander of turn number 2 at Farm. He's looking quite good, coming through this part of the track in toward the village section, village at turn number 3, and then in toward the loop at turn number 4, famously where I saw I don't know who it was going around the outside. It was certainly a commentary that I did with you, I think, going around the outside and actually getting 2 drivers on the exit of the corner, which was pretty decent, as Ruti now comes down in towards the first sector split, 27.5 through the first sector, so that is pretty much what we're expecting at the start of the qualifying session in Q1, and Ruti now sets about coming through Luffield on the run down towards Woodcut, and so far so good so far from Ruti. Justin as well just powering on that lap, Backy and Leo on that laps as well, but Ruti looking quite good as he comes in towards Cox.
Yeah, looking like a solid lap so far. We'll definitely see what you can do for the middle sector split. You've got to say, through the middle sector, 103.3 should put him close to where his time was in the previous session. So we'll see what his time is through this part of the lap. So he heads through Magnus and Beckett's looking nice and neat and tidy. He's not using all of the road, so doesn't look fully on it. And only a 3.7 in the middle part of the lap, so not quite as fast as you saw in the first part of the session, but maybe he is running on an older set of tyres. We're not quite sure. Potentially he is running on a used set of tyres in this session. Maybe he doesn't want to use too many softs in this one, so that will see. Maybe that will be why he's a little bit off the pace so far in this qualifying session, although he did only use one set in the first part, so maybe not quite sure maybe why he would use the used sets. He crosses the line and only a 0.6, so there you go. Quite a way off what he managed in the first part of quali, which was a 0.2 to put him third in the first part of quali. So yeah, 4/10 down on that lap, and we'll see what other drivers can do. Hyder crosses the line, 2/10 of a second back. Enzo's going to cross the line soon. He looks like he's on similar pace to Ruti, as is Artem as well. And the other Ferrari, as he crosses the line, Enzo crosses the line, 27.5 to put himself at the top of the time sheets for VRT. But by the looks of the times, it does look like a few people out there are running on a used set of tyres, just saving those set of softs potentially for Q3 if they do get through. But that is, of course, if they do get through, they've got to make sure that if they're doing only one other run in the session on a new set, that they don't make a mistake.
Yeah, definitely so. Frankie the Imposter, by the way, has just joined in the chat, the Shazoo man, down there in the comment section. Hope you're all doing well on this fine Sunday afternoon. Enzo leads the way from Ruti in second, Artem there in third. Shazoo, of course, are not part of the NLR team event, which is why I said he's an imposter coming into this chat. As Urpeg coming through the left-hander turn number 4, through the left-hander turn number 5. He actually invalidated his first run. Justin did the same as well. He's actually backed off into the pit lane, but we saw that with Urpeg, he went for multiple runs actually in Q1. 27.6 in the first sector is not too bad. It was slower than Ruti, I think, through the first sector, so Urpek maybe on the older compound tyres you mentioned. He'll be looking, I think, to go around Artem Backy just to try and get a lap time on the board as he now cascades his way through Woodcut on the run down and towards Cups Corner. And of course, I believe this afternoon they are doing the British Prototype Championship, if I'm not mistaken, around Silverstone, with literally about 2 fans within the realms of the grandstands, which is disappointing, I think, for that championship. But it is always good to see action, of course, at Silverstone in real life as Urpek now comes through this middle sector split, and he has got a little bit of toe potentially. 103.9 in the middle sector is a little bit off, I've got to say, in terms of the time, so he might go actually behind Hardy there in the Mercedes there in 5th position with a 27.853. And with Enzo sending a 27.5, and that's currently our best time. Remains to be seen. I think I'm pretty much spot on, as that Opec just slightly lags coming through Fail and then towards the corner at turn 18. On the run toward the line with Opec, and he goes behind Hardy as predicted, and only a 10th off in the end. 6th position though, on an older set of tyres, just invalidates his next run if he does want to go for another one. But down in 6th, NLR, with one of their drivers especially, could be in trouble. The Spicer, 103.9 in the middle sector, is purple.
Yeah, good. Looking so far, good so far from Spicer in the middle sector, but yeah, 3.9 through the second sector split is again kind of where Opec was, so maybe a mistake in the first part of the lap potentially for the Aston Martin. And of course, Opec, other drivers have maybe 2 laps on their tyres. Opec has had 4 on that set of tyres if he is using a used set, of course, because he used that set twice in Q1. So his tyres are even older than everybody else's. And I'm not actually, I mean, this just goes to show how little I played this game in the last 4 or 5 months, but I don't actually know how many sets of soft tyres you get for a full body session. If it's 4 or 5 compound tyres, I'd understand using maybe a used set at the start of this session, but if it's 5 or 6 set of soft compounder tyres, I'm not quite sure why you would use the used set if you've only used one in the first part. So, especially because you don't really need the softs for the race. So, not quite sure what the case is there. I'm sure someone can tell me in the chat what they're going to be doing. So, yeah, we'll see what they can do. More drivers on laps at the moment then. Stefano has just started his latest lap. Geordie's coming to the line, but it's only a 28 flat for Geordie in the IRT Red Bull. So not a great lap again for Geordie. Again, people just not looking all that confident at the start of this session. Again, that is going to be down to tyres most likely, but still, you'd expect around a track like Silverstone there to not be that much of a pace difference on a second set of tyres. I mean, in the first part of quali, Opec managed on his second lap on that set of tyres to 2.2. So the fact that nobody's been able to get anywhere near is a little bit interesting as across the line. I think when Spicer's just crossed the line, was it? Or no, Julian, sorry, just crossed the line to go P7 on a 27.9. More drivers crossing the line. And again, nobody really anywhere near. Stefano, who's had a very good first sector.
Stefano has had a very good first sector, 27.514 through the first sector split, coming through Cups. That is how you take Cups corner pretty much flat out in the F1 Esports Challengers, man. Of course, qualified for the PS side at least, coming through the left-hander of turn of Maggots, and then through Beckett, and then in towards Chapel on the end of the middle sector. And this is more like it from Stefano, already around 0.2 of a second off from what we saw with Ruti. So my imagination is going to be around a 27.2, 27.3, I think, this lap. Stefano now coming in toward the final couple of corners, looking absolutely nailed on the FDR, man. He has, of course, he is going to be represented, of course, I believe, or he is going to be in the F1 Esports Challengers. Has a bit of a snap. I think it's going to be enough, though, on the run to the line. 27.4 in the end. That slight snap cost him. Not as quick as what I would have thought, certainly, but Stefano had on top, Enzo in second. And that was going to be my next point. I thought, actually, the track evolution was actually getting worse on this track compared to better. Stefano betters that. But whether or not Justin and Leo can improve on their lap times, they're just on runs at the minute 14th and 15th position with 6 minutes to go. It's going to be pretty close in towards who's going out. And you said there, 1,000th per second covering 10th to 11th in Q1. Q2 might even be down to the millisecond, quite literally.
It definitely could, yeah. Stefano, have a weird lap.
Oh, wow. Sorry to cut you off. Just now, 103.2 in the middle sector. Track evolution completely going out the window. This man is on a very quick lap. The German now coming through, the former NLR man, in fact, coming through the final couple of corners in towards Vale and Klob, and the FVR man coming through 17. This is going to be nailed on 27.2. We really get her coming out the corner on the run to the line. Oh, to 27 flat. 27 flat from Justin. Stefano in second, and that is what we call a special lap as Leo goes second, and only 500ths of a second off him as well. So Justin out on top, Leo in second. Ruti now comes in with a 26.9. Here we go. Now we're getting lap times in.
Yeah, lap times are coming in now, aren't they? Everybody's putting on a fresh set of soft compound tyres, and the pace is coming in. Great lap there from Ruti to be the first person into the 26s in this session. And yeah, good lap time there. Stefano one was a weird one. It was a good lap up to the point, but that final sector was really quite poor actually for Stefano. It was a good couple of tenths off the best that we did send at that point in the session. So not a good final sector from Stefano. By the way, Stefano is not in challenges. He's too young. I think you're maybe thinking of OP Stefano because there's so many limits. There's so many blimmin' Stefanos in the Formula One community at the moment. So yeah, so that's probably why. But apparently Urban is in challenges, so that's definitely we've still got a challenger in there as Artem crosses the line now to put it on the front row in this Q2 session with a 27 flat. So the times are improving now, definitely, aren't they? We saw the fastest in the previous session was a flat, a 27 flat, but we didn't see anybody. There was only one driver in that, and then it was more back to the 0.2s that we saw the next drivers. But Artem only managed to 0.4 in the first part of the session. He's now onto a flat, so more time being found here. So maybe there is a little bit of track evolution, and the track is getting that little bit faster. Backy's managed to go P5 as well in the Alpine at the moment on the 27.1, just behind his teammate. So not a bad lap there at all. Just seeing who else is on the lap. Erpek 2/10 up in the first sector. Good first sector from Erpek there at 27.4. So we'll keep an eye on him for the rest of the lap. So you would imagine, obviously, with his very old set of tyres that he was on, that he's going to find a lot of time, especially in this middle part of the lap. So we'll see what Erpek can do. Can he get right up there with his teammate?
Yeah, of course, he is a reserve driver, I believe, for F1 Esports Challenges, along with Jensen and all the likes. Many drivers that we've commentated on in the past. I've done Esports Challenges, which is fantastic to see. And, of course, NLR do have a former F1 Esports Challenges man, a name changer in their lineup as well, as Erpek through the middle sector is huge, 103.2 in that middle sector, so pretty much around Justin sort of area, so certainly in terms of this lap time. Whether or not it can actually find anything through the final couple of corners remains to be seen. Coming out through Stowe, and then in towards Bale and Club at turns 16, 17 and 18, through the final couple of corners now, on board with Erpek, as he comes through 17, through 18, doesn't get caught on the outside curb. This will look very neat indeed from Erpek on the run to the line, and he goes second, and that is the difference between making a mistake coming out the final couple of corners and not making a mistake. Erpek there goes second. Justin, he got caught on that outside curb, remember, so he lost a tenth of a second. Artem did exactly the same as well. He lost a tenth of a second, so Erpek there in second, and it looks to me as if it's going to be NLR versus possibly one of the VRT guys versus the FBR team, potentially, with Stefano there in 7th, Enzo there in 8th, and Enzo, in fact, VRT man, is just on up on a lap on the 27.5, and he's another one that's gone into a fresh set of softs.
Yeah, he's onto a fresh set of softs now. He's gone a little bit earlier than everybody else as well, I think, just to get some clear track and not be involved in any sort of traffic drama. So smart move there from Enzo, especially if he's got the pace at the moment. Looking with only 2 minutes to go at the cutoff point is, at the moment, the cutoff point is a 27.9, but that's some drivers, again, that still haven't done a fresh tyre run yet. So it's going to be difficult to actually know what it's going to be, what the cutoff point is going to be in this session. So you've got to get some times on the board. Enzo already 2/10 up in the first sector, so good first sector there from Enzo. We're seeing drivers tying at the front, as you would expect, especially Ruti at the front, not a surprise. Maybe a surprise, though, to see both of the Alpines retiring in this session, especially Enzo on his run at the moment is already 2/10 up. There could potentially be some surprises, and one of them could get caught out here. So we'll keep an eye on what they do as Enzo comes through the middle part of the lap, a little bit wide in the first part of Beckett's as he gets through onto the grass, as the majority of them are doing on the exit of that corner. Still 2/10 up, not quite an improvement in the middle part of the lap for Enzo, but at the moment this is a lap that's looking like it's going to get him in and amongst the Alpines and maybe in and around that kind of 5th, 6th place.
Yeah, big snap of oversteer there coming out of turn number 15. Big correction from the Ferrari as he comes down through 16, 17, 18, in towards the corner at turn number 18. Ends up getting caught in that outside curve, gets a phenomenal run out the corner on the run to the line. He goes in between and splits the Alpines, in fact. So Leo there in 5th, Enzo there in 6th. I think he has done enough out on track. And Hyder, I believe, is just starting up on a run in the Mercedes. Spicer as well, just starting up on one. Pepe potentially could be the one to watch out for. The PGS man delivered a fantastic performance in qualifying in midweek in EML Premier 1, and he was up there in EML Premier 1. I think it was around America, if I'm not mistaken. So Pepe has got form coming into tonight, and hopefully the PGS man, the sole PGS man, of course, in this qualifying session, can provide a very good lap. I'm not going to ride on board with him because I don't want to show any bias towards my own team. Spies are on the run in towards the first couple of corners as well. Oni Katsuni just starting up and run. I think he might be one of the furthest on, actually, potentially on a lap, along with Hein Heide, who was actually purple, I think, in that first sector. Oni Katsuni through the first sector split. The team mental is a man, 27.6 in the first sector, so he is way off compared to what we've seen with Ruti and Erpek. The middle and the final parts of the lap, though, are very crucial. Hein Heide, though, 27.5 in that first sector. Thereabouts. He could be one, though, to go out in this qualifying session.
Yeah, definitely potential. Yeah, Spicer 0.4 in the first sector, so Spicer's found a good amount of time in the Aston Martin, the sole remaining Aston Martin in the session as well. So just trying to find a bit of time. Yeah, I think Katsune looks like he's kind of a shoe-in to not be into the next part of the session. That first sector already way off the best that we've seen so far. Pappy's just gone through the first sector, didn't quite catch though what his time was to see Katsune through the second part of the sector. He's found just a bit more time, but again, he's just too far off, you've got to say, at this point in the session, as Hein Heide rounds the final couple of corners now and comes up towards the line. We'll see where he can go, but I don't think it's going to be any better than an 8th. It's not. It's only 8th at the moment. I don't think there's going to be enough. By the way, FER Stefano's managed to point 2 in the first sector, so look out for Stefano when he crosses the line.
Yeah, he looked really quick through that first sector split. Julian as well in the lap. Spies his 5 10s up, 103.4 in the middle sector. He's going to pull him there or thereabouts. The GSP man on the run to the line goes 9th behind Heider. I thought that was going to be actually a quicker lap. Stefano through the middle sector split will come on board the AlphaTauri now, and he's 4 10s up and he's purple in the middle sector. So Stefano 103 flat in that middle sector. Huge lap from the FEO man coming in, and he could try and split the NLR pairing. In fact, go ahead of them potentially with this lap. Oni Kutsuni is out, Geordie is out as well. It looks like Julian and Pappy also going to be out. Pappy with the 28.6 goes there into 12th position, just improved. Julian on the run to line goes 10th, but Stefano's going to knock him out in qualifying on the run to line. Oh, and he goes quickest. Brilliant that from Stefano. I think that was, if I'm not mistaken, was that a 26?
It was 26.775 from Stefano. Wow. That's 2 tenths clear of the 2 McLarens. That is a stellar lap. That is a stellar lap from Stefano.
A stellar lap indeed. Stefano, well, if he's not challengers, he might be next year. Stefano out on top from Ruti there in second, Urpek there in third, Artem there in fourth. Both VRT drivers are through, which is good. Both FER drivers are through. Justin in fifth, Leo in sixth, Enzo in seventh, Backy in eighth, Heider there in ninth, and Spicer in the end comfortably through by 500ths of a second. Julian there in 11th didn't do enough. If he was the last man on track, got a little bit of fake slipstream, potentially could have got in. Peppy there in 12th, Happy in 13th. That's going to be interesting off the start line. I'm Katsuni in 14th, and Geordie there in 15th. So out of qualifying is a PGS man, is an ELT man, Team Mentalism as well, and both Red Bulls as well for IRT are also out.
Yeah, both IRTs out. Unfortunately, that is a bit of a shame. But yeah, looking at the times from 12th to 15th, they didn't really look like they were anywhere near close enough, unfortunately, to making it in to Q3 in that session. You've got to say the only person in that session in the end that could have made it through, that did get knocked out, was Julian. He was just half a tenth out of making it into Q3, didn't make it, but everyone behind that was nearly 2 tenths further back. So you've got to say it's definitely the right Q3. There's not really any shock surprises. In either of the qualifier sessions, you've got to say, that have been knocked out in that one. So this is kind of the top 10 we expected. It was definitely going to be the 2 Alphas, the 2 Ferraris, the 2 Mercs, and the 2 Alpines that made it through. It was just a case of who was going to get that 9th and 10th spot, and one of them's gone to a Mercedes, and the other one's gone to an Aston Martin. So yeah, good results there for them, but it's now all about who can knock Stefano off the top, it seems, isn't it? It looked initially like it was going to be an LNR qualifying lockout, but Stefano was just waiting to the end of the session to throw a surprise at them.
He was indeed, and with Ruti being the first man out on track as well, give me your predictions in terms of the top 3 for Q3. This is going to be, of course, dependent. There is points as well available to the top 8 positions. It is 10 for P1, 8 for P2. Third gets 6 points, and then it's 1 point increments all the way down to 8th position, which gets 1 point. It's the old F1 not the pit layout, the old F1 Championship standings, I should say. Goodness me, I'm absolutely all over the place, but still, Ruti the first man out on track. The NLR man going out early, I've got to say, in terms of this qualifying session. We did see this in Australia as well, where they actually opted to go out a little bit early, and then they were pretty much the final drivers, of course, out on track in Q3 in Australia. Will that tactic work once again? Urpek there in 5th might just not have the pace compared to Ruti. Ruti might be the main man here for the NLR team, but if I was a betting man, and I sometimes am, I think the FBR guy, Stefano, I think will go quickest. I'll root for Ruti for second, and for third in this qualifying, I am going to go for Backy.
Bold choices, bold choices. I think I agree with you for the front row. I think Stefano and Ruti have looked the best of those in the qualifying session so far, so I wouldn't be surprised. I'm going to go with Artem, I think, for third. I think Artem's shown some good pace so far in this session. He's been pretty strong, so I think he could potentially throw a surprise in there in that Ferrari. He's looked very close to the McLarens all the way through, so if he can get a really good lap on the board, Artem could definitely be one. And by the way, thank you to everybody in the chat that was letting me know things about this game that I should know by now. But if you choose the harder set of tyres in this full qualifying session, you get 3 softs. If you choose the balance, you get 4. If you choose the softer, you get 5. Around a circuit like Silverstone, I would expect people to choose the soft layout because, like I said earlier on, you don't need the softs in the race and the tyre wear's not a problem. So you would expect most of them to have 5 sets, maybe 4. I'd be amazed if anybody went for the harder setting and ended up with only 3 softs. But with how everybody was using the tyres in that session, everybody in this session, you would assume, should have 2 new sets of softs going into this one. So we should see everybody on their full pace straight from the start of the session. Maybe 1 or 2 have maybe used a couple of sets of softs just to get through the session. Maybe, especially in Q1, they've used another set of softs. But if they've got the softer compounded tyres, then maybe they've gotten away with it and they still have 2 sets. So we'll keep an eye on what these drivers are doing. We'll know pretty much immediately what their kind of pace is when they cross the line to see whether they are on a fresh set of tyres or not. Just seeing Ruti Gullit, by the way, through the second sector, 3.1, good middle sector, not quite as fast as what Stefano managed in Q2. That was a 3 flat, but 3.1 still really good there from Ruti Gullit as he heads through that part of the lap now. So we'll see what he can do. Leo on his lap at the moment as well, but not a great first sector from the Alpine driver.
Not at all. Ruti now coming through club corner at turn number 18 on the run toward the line. This has looked a very, very good lap compared to his first run. Already in the 26ers. Goodness me. Ruti 26.8. Fantastic lap from his perspective. Leo 103.4 in that middle sector. Not looking too bad at all. The JR man for Juventus Racing, Baki as well, is on the lap coming through the middle sector out of Corps. Hein Heide, I think, has just started as Leo. Has just invalidated coming out of Stowe corner on the outside curb through 15. So that is him done, and that is him nearly going for a spin as well. Goodness me, Leo all over the place. Backy through the middle sector, 103.1. So he's actually up on Ruti's time, I think, in that middle sector. He's there or thereabouts, actually, with Ruti in that middle sector. Spicer as well in the lap. Urpek's just starting up on a run, I think. He's coming through the end of the first sector through Luffield. As now, Backy in 8th position, coming through the final couple of corners. In fact, Urpek is actually on the other side of the track. As Backy comes through the final couple of corners on the run toward the line, the Juventus Racing man, is he going to go quickest? No, go second, but 1200ths of a second off Ruti. I was going to say, do not discount him at your peril. Backy, in there in second, 26.9, very respectful lap.
Yeah, very respectable lap there from Backy. Here comes Urpek round the final corner as well. Matched Ruti in the middle part of the lap, and he goes just under a 10th faster than his teammate, but again, still not quite as fast as what Stefano managed in Q2. I'm keeping an eye on Stefano through the middle sector split here, see what he can do for the middle sector. It's a 3 flat again. Stefano's up on the 2 McLarens by just over a 10th in the middle part of the lap, so Stefano straight on it once again in this part of the session. Got to keep an eye on Justin as well. Justin's had a really good first sector in the other Alpha Tauri, so keep an eye on him for the rest of this lap as Stefano comes through the Vale and Club Chicane. Spicer in a lap right in front of him on the lap as well. Just a 26.9. That's a good lap from Spicer as well to get right in and amongst that battle for second at the moment. And there goes Stefano with a 0.6. What a final sector from Stefano. Lovely lap once again, and he puts over a 10th, nearly a 10th and a half on the rest of them. That is going to be difficult to beat, but Justin's right there with him.
He is. He's purple in the middle sector. Justin now coming to the right under 15 at Stowe. In towards the dip. In toward Balen Club at turns 16, 17 and 18. Hyde they down into 7. Enzo improves up to 6. But Justin now coming through the final couple of corners on the run to line. Is he going to go against Stefano? No, just shy. 600ths of a second, I think, off. Stefano out on top. Justin there in second, Urpek there in third, 26.6 we're already at. Artem through the first sector, 27.2 in the first sector. Not bad from Artem. The VRT man through the middle sector, 103 flat. He's up there. The VRT team coming alive, certainly with Artem, as he now comes in toward the final couple of corners. That is Urpek, I think, running out of fuel in the background of the shot, but Urpek now coming through. Stowe corner at turn number 15. We've still got 5 minutes and 50 seconds left. We may as well give you enthusiastic commentary at this part. As Artem now comes through the final couple of corners on the run toward the line, waltzes his way through the final corner, bit of an oversteer, but he goes third, 26.7, very good lap from Artem, a 10th of a second off Stefano out on top, Justin there in second, Artem there in third. I don't think anybody is on a lap at this stage, certainly. Urpek, however, is doing what he has done in Q1 and Q2 and go for another run, so Urpek, interestingly, not happy with his first run, 26.8, is he going more for track evolution, or is he going to try, and he's certainly not going to go for track evolution because he just made a huge mistake coming out of turn 3 at Village.
Yeah, it didn't seem to work in Q1, this extra lap, and it didn't work in Q2 either, and then, yeah, turned in far too early there for Village and for Farm, sorry, and ended up clipping the sausage curb on the inside, and that was a lap ruined already. Yeah, you go half a second down in the first sector. No point, really, for Ped to keep going. I mean, he has enough time. If the lap was going to work, he did have enough time, but I don't see it really working at this point in the session. I think you need the freshest compounded tyres you can possibly get. But yeah, it's been the McLaren show really all the way through qualifying so far. But all of a sudden they're now 4th and 5th, which is a little bit lower than I was expecting. We've not really seen. I mean, Stefano's looked the leader since the end of Q2. Justin's kind of been fairly innocuous in this session, hasn't he? He's just worked his way through Q1 and Q2, not really shone at the front of the sessions, but then as soon as we get to Q3, he's right up there with his teammate. And again, Artem, steady progress throughout the session for Artem. He did a 0.4 in the first part, he did a flat in the second part, and now he's down comfortably into the 26s. So Artem just keeps steadily getting faster and faster as the session goes on. And my prediction for him third, it's not looking too crazy right now. So I'm quite glad that he's actually pulled that out of the bag just for me, so I don't look too crazy. But yeah, a few drivers still with some time to find. Hyde made a mistake in the middle part of the lap. That's why he's still in the 27s and Leo with no time on the board at all. So we'll keep an eye on what they can do. But yeah, FVR at the moment looking maybe potentially a little bit untouchable.
Yeah, definitely so. You're never crazy, by the way. You are never crazy in terms of your predictions. Backy there in 6th, to be fair. It's better than my P3 prediction at this stage with Backy there down in 6th position. But we have still got 3.5 minutes to go in this qualifying session. Good evening, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone that is tuning in. Probably from all across Europe, maybe even across the world as well. Jav there saying in the comment section, Stefano should be out kicking a ball on the Sunday afternoon. Who's allowed him to stay inside? I totally agree. That is what my childhood was certainly like. We had to kick balls out on a Sunday afternoon. But Sunday afternoons now for the NLR team event, and it just comes to show, I think, how my childhood was completely and utterly wasted compared to these guys' childhood, who of course are qualifying for F1 Esports Challengers. Some of them, at least, are qualifying for F1 Esports Challengers. Hadrick there in the comment section as well, saying, let's go Juventus. Juventus is doing a good job at this stage, 6th and 10th position. Both of their drivers through to Q2, I think, for the first time this season as well, so that will fill them with a lot of confidence. However, the cloud cover is now beginning to build over the circuit. Look at that big, juicy black cloud and behind the grandstand. That is cloud cover beginning to build over the circuit. Leo was the first man out on track, so if that is going to bring cloud cover for the rest of this session with only 2 minutes to go, that could mean the set of softs are not going to work. So Leo, to be fair, he might just have came out at the right optimal time, I think, for his lap.
Potentially, yeah, it could cool the track down, which I think it's kind of hard to know really whether that makes the tyres better or worse. It's kind of hard to tell. I think it's different on different tracks. I think around a track like Silverstone, it's potentially going to make them worse because we don't really see those tyre problems. So we'll see. We'll definitely see Leo's gone out a little bit earlier. He's not going to have any of the traffic problems that seemingly everybody else is going to have because they've all come out at the same time. So Leo's got a bit of clean track ahead of him, which will definitely help him potentially in his warm-up for this lap. By the way, my Sundays were definitely not about kicking balls. About mine, I was still staying inside but not doing anything. So I definitely didn't have the best of childhoods, unfortunately. I think I would have been, I think I would have had a much better childhood if the Challengers was around in like maybe 2014 or 15. I would have had I would have been in a very different place right now if Challengers was around then. But sadly it wasn't, and I was just stuck indoors doing nothing. So there you go. That's the other side of the coin. Is you're either out kicking a ball, doing Challengers, or you're doing none of them. And I was the one doing none of them. As Leo starts his final run in this qualifying session, so we'll see what he can do. He'll be the first person by miles to finish their final lap in the session. But Leo again has not looked quite on top of that car so far in this session. He's not looked like he's challenging really for the top 5 here. I think it's just to see whether he can get himself maybe onto the 4th row, maybe a 7th or 8th potentially for Leo. I don't think any higher than that is that attainable, unfortunately, for Leo in the session so far. Although he could be hiding something. We never know. He could be definitely hiding something in the session. We don't know as he heads through the first sector split. We'll see what the sector split looks like. This 0.4 again. Not bad, but it is already 2 tenths off what Stefano and Justin have managed. So, again, not quite looking like he's going to be challenging at the front.
Yeah, I mean, he's not out of his depth at all in Q3. He's done so well, I think, to get through into Q3. He's not out of his depth at all. He'd be, I think, challenging for Heinhard Enzo. I think that will be sort of his fight, I think, in this qualifying session. He's doing a fantastic job so far. I wouldn't like to give the rumours in that Aiden is having to spend 2 hours with me in the commentary box either on this Sunday afternoon these days. But things never really change as Leo there comes through and he has a huge snap coming through the exit of Beckett. It's valid, but it's a 103.4 and he backs off his lap. Is he going to be in time to get another run in? I think that might be the end of his qualifying session. So Juventus Racing going to be at least in 10th position with Leo. Backy there has just done up on a run. Who is furthest on a lap? It is, I believe, Spicer, who's 1600 up in the first sector, 27.3 in the first sector. His fight is going to be, I think, with Backy and with the likes of Enzo as well. So Spicer, the GSP man, coming to the right-hander of Stowe, in towards Cops, turn number 9. I knew I was going to say that. Coming through Maggots and Beckett, and then in towards the exit of Chapel, which will be upcoming very soon indeed. But Spicer looking very good on the lap, controlling the car very nicely on the exit, and it's a 103 flat in the middle sector. Where is this lap time coming from Spicer? He is now really trying to spy a place, maybe even in the top 3. The GSP man into the right-hander of Cops, into the right-hander of Stowe at turn 15. Goodness me. Into the Valen Club at turn 16, 17 and 18, and Spicer on a very good run here. The GSP man on the run through the final couple of corners, on the run to the line. Is he going to go quicker, Stephen? No, goes 5th. No. Good lap time, goes ahead of Ruti. Ruti is actually coming across the line now, and he goes quickest. 26.608. Stefano, though, is a 10th up through the first sector. Justin as well is invalidated. So Justin is invalidated through that part of the lap. But Stefano is 10th and a half up nearly in that middle sector. Baki goes second. Baki goes second. 26.6. Artem doesn't improve. Baki could get P3 here. All depends on Stefano coming through the final couple of corners. If I get this prediction right, as Urpek just ruins it. Urpek, thank you very much. 26.5 gets pole position for now, but Stefano shooting going to go quicker on the run to the line, and he does. It's a 26.542. Leo in the end is actually improving. 103.2 in the middle sector. This is a huge middle sector in coming from his perspective. On the run toward the line with Leo. The Juventus raceman, is he going to go quicker than Hein Heide? Not quite in the end. Urpek ruins my top 3. Absolutely disgraceful behaviour from the NLR man. We'll run you through the full 10 in Q3 in just a second. It is Stefano out on top from Urpek in second, Ruti there in third, and Baki in fourth. I mean, a 10th of a second covering the top 4 is not bad going at all. Artem there in fifth, not too far from in terms of your prediction either, Aiden, to be fair. Justin there in sixth, Enzo in seventh, Spicer in eighth, Hein Heide in ninth, and Leo in 10th. Stefano, though, out on top. Ruti technically second, Baki technically third. Let's just get rid of that man in P2.
You can't rig it in your favour. That's not how it works, unfortunately. But yeah, brilliant qualifying session in the end. McLaren threw everything at it, but Stefano just had that little bit more. And for Stefano, it definitely seemed to be that middle sector. That seems to be where Stefano is the faster of all the other drivers. So brilliant qualifying from him, and great qualifying for McLaren as a team as well. I think Justin's going to be a bit frustrated with that invalidation because he was up on his time. So Justin P6, not quite where he would want to be either.
Yeah, definitely not. I think he has a lot of pace in him. He just needs to really find that next level almost to try and go through that invalidation, as you mentioned. He was 400 stand, I think, out of the first sector, invalidated coming through Maggots and Beckett. That was unfortunate from his perspective. What we do like to see, though, was beautiful blue skies and sunshine. 26 laps, of course, awaiting our drivers out on track. Let me know in the comment section who you're supporting. Let me know for your top 3. Am I going to go for the same top 3 as in qualifying? Probably not, because Urpek just absolutely completely ruined it. But it is going to be a fascinating race, and of course, back here at Silverstone, we are going to be in for really, really strong action, and hopefully a very good race. Normally the second half is better than the first half, but we could see all sorts of carnage, maybe in through the first couple of corners on the first lap of the race. But this is now game time. This is where the drivers have got to get their heads basically back on, focused in that mindset. The engineers in the background will be giving them probably final words of support, giving them the good luck message as well. And Aiden, this is now game time for these drivers out on track. And judging by that Q3, if we get these drivers on pace, all of them on pace, this could be a phenomenal race.
It definitely could, yeah. A lot of this race could hinge on when they decide to pit, definitely. That could be a big factor in this one. And of course, if, as you would expect, the majority of drivers are going to start on the hards, you would assume. You could see drivers pit from the hards about lap 10 for a set of mediums, and the mediums will get to the end just fine. So there's definitely some strategy at play here. We're going to see some people go long. We're going to see some people go short. It's going to be very interesting, and it's going to be hard to predict which strategy is going to be the best as well.
It is going to be 5 seconds to go then until we get going for the NLR team event round 2 of the championship here at Silverstone, the home of British motorsport. The 5 red lights now coming on. Stefano on the right-hand side, Urpek on the left-hand side, 5 red lights. And it is Urpek gets a drive through, so does Ruti, and so does Artem as well. A misjudgment in terms of the start, and Urpek leads the way off the line. Stefano there through turn number 1, absolute drama. The NLR boys jumped the start. I'm not sure if there was maybe a light split potentially there from them both, but Urpek there leads. Stefano there in second, Ruti there in third. They come now through the right-hand return number 3 in Village for the first time. There's 3, 4 abreast almost in the background. Julian has a big snap of oversteer, trying to get the move done on Enzo, and actually there's a bit of ghosting going on between the middle of the pack, and I think there's desync actually between these drivers as Oliver and Pepe Vogel and Enzo has left the session as well. I wonder if we are going to get a restart perhaps here in terms of the session, and I wouldn't be surprised if we do. But yeah, Enzo's saying there is full lag within the session. That is why we might get a restart potentially. Urpek though leads the way, Stefano there in second, Ruti there in third, Urpek away by a second. Absolute drama off the start. In the end, though, the lights not really going out for the NLR boys, or indeed for Artem, who picks up a penalty as well. But I wouldn't be surprised if we do have to restart. And to be honest, I think it'll probably be best if we do get a restart.
I'm not quite sure. I don't know if it's just an Enzo problem or whether it's a lobby problem, because everybody else seems to be okay by the looks of things. Enzo definitely was lagging, but everybody else seems to be fine. So maybe it is just an Enzo problem, unfortunately, which is a bit of a shame. But that start is an absolute disaster. Rucci's trying to get down the inside of Stefano. At Stowe, I think if you're Stefano, you don't need to fight it. He's got a drive-through penalty. He's going to have to serve it at some point, and he's in, as is Erpek, as is Artem. By the looks of what I saw, was Erpek spared as well, just to compound the issues for Erpek. What it looks like to me is Erpek jumped the start before the rest of them, and then Artem and Ruti just jumped in reaction to Erpek going. So I think it was a case of Erpek made the mistake, and Ruti and Artem just immediately reacted to them rather than the lights, and got caught out at the same time. I don't think it was a lights problem. I think it was just Erpek jumped the start, and Ruti and Artem went in reaction to him instead of the lights. So that is, it's very common. You see it a lot when drivers do jump the start, that other people jump in reaction to them. It's just a natural reaction, but it has caught out 3 of our top 5. And what it has done has given FVR a massive boost in this race. Stefano leads. He's ahead of his teammate Justin. I wouldn't be surprised if Stefano maybe backs into Justin to give his teammate DRS here potentially. But that has given them a huge run in front of this field. And of course, the problem for Erpek and Ruti now, Erpek does now have a 5-second penalty he's going to have to serve in the pits lane. And you've got to say, this is probably one of the worst tracks to have a drive-through at, because it is such a long and slow pit lane. And there's side-by-side throughout the field. I think Toby getting past also for P10. And Julian already as well with a 3-second time penalty for chat limits. It's been a bit of a bizarre start. It's been a really bizarre start to the race here.
It has been a really bizarre start to this race. Only Katsuni, by the way, has gained 7. Oliver's gained 10 positions off the race start, so fantastic start from him. Andretti spun as well, coming through Club Corner through the final turn on that one, so he is down in 16th position. He has gained a position, though, off this race start. The VRT guys, there are no other issues currently in the lobby, which I'm glad to report. Certainly from my end, I'm the host, so as well, I have to bear full allegiance, potentially, in terms of the issues, in terms of what might happen. But I think, as you said, Erpek just jumped the start, and I think everyone had that reaction time, and that reaction time was just slightly slower than the guys. And I think also with Artem, I think he reacted after the lights actually went out. So Erpek there, as Jordi and Pappy, I think, have been caught up in a slight collision coming out the final corner. Jordi, Xenon through on both of them. So Jordi there in 13th, Pappy there in 14th. Pappy hoping for a mammy potentially out on track with ERT. Man, that's a terrible one. Coming to the left-hander of turn number 4. Spicer there on the back, but Stefano there leading the way. Justin there in second. Pappy there in third. Enzo on the back of Oliver, looking to try and get the job done. I want to move. This isn't towards Brooklyn. Absolutely sent it for a chocolate biscuit to the inside line. Enzo, the VRT man, absolutely sailed on by. Oliver had no pace coming out the corner, and that is Enzo through, and he's into 8th position. That was very, very good from Enzo. Stunning move. He's through to Brooklyn, and he's through into 8th position. Stefano leads just in second. FDR currently holding 1-2.
Yeah, good start for them, 1-2 for them, and as I predicted, Stefano's backed off to let Justin get in within his DRS range, so that will help them as a team later on. Lovely move, like you said, from Enzo as well. Lead driver on the medium compound tyres. We did have 4 drivers on the mediums at the start. Enzo, Oliver, Pappy, and Andretti. Andretti's, of course, has spun and has now picked up a 3-second time penalty for track limits. Pappy's not had a great start in the other ERT either. Enzo and Oliver going for something a little bit different here, but they're kind of out of position, and because of all the carnage at the start, they've kind of lost the train potentially in front of this field. So not great for them as Xenon and Jordi going side by side through Stowe. A little bit of wheel banging, but they get away with it. Jordi's going to try and go around the outside into Vale. Xenon's going to send it on the brakes and just blocks the move off a tiny bit of contact, but they get away with it. But there is a queue of cars right now forming behind Xenon in that Haas. He's got quite a queue of cars, both the Williams and Aston and the Red Bull directly behind him, trying to get their way through, but can't seem to find a way past at the moment. By the way, first proper break in the DRS train here is Oliver in P9 at the moment. He has just dropped away from Enzo with a little mistake through Stowe on the previous lap, as Artem fastest lap just goes to prove what a miss. Oh, contact further down the field. I think Jordi's potentially either had contact with Pappy. Is he had a mistake, or is he just backed off? Oh, and now Andretti spun on the exit.
Andretti spins on the exit. I think Jordi actually locked up in toward the loop, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't see any contact there, unless there was a bit of desync potentially. The Red Bull, they're in 15th, I think just locked up by himself, and they're in 15th, doing a good job, but he has lost position to Pappy, to Spicer, and now lets them catch up to the back of Xenon, which is not too bad because he's on a set of hard compound tyres. Whether or not they can actually gap them remains to be seen. Stefano leads the way from Justin there in second, the 1-2 currently out on track. Mitri saying always with the disconnection for VRT. Get better internet, I think, from Enzel's perspective in terms of that. I mean, to be fair, he's doing a great job in 8th position. He's rejoined out on track and he's there in 8th position and is still in the lobby, which is fantastic to see. And he's on the side of medium, so it is going to go according to plan potentially for one VRT man, as Baki is on the back of Justin. But now the big split beginning to come. The FER boys just clearly working together, clearly now having that plan. And that plan, I'm sure, from the FER team is to work together. Jochen, their engineer, will be absolutely gunning this towards and try and pull out Baki to outside a second. Oni Katsuni's on the back of Julian for turn number 1. Coming out of Abbey, gets caught in the inside curve there. Does the Red Bull. Oni Katsuni on the back of him. The Haas all over the back. But Enzo there now getting involved in this battle as well. 6th, 7th, and 8th position out on track. The Spinal leading just in 2nd. Baki there in 3rd. Heider there in 4th. Leo there in 5th. Julian, Oni Katsuni, Enzo. Might see position changes though with this battle running down the Wellington Straight. Hard to think there. Coming down through Bucklands on Oni Katsuni. Spies the inside line in the end though. Enzo come actually back onto the back of Oni Katsuni. Oni Katsuni looking a bit laggy to be honest. And the VR team, oh, and Enzo spins. Enzo has a huge spin coming out of left field. Unfortunate for him, gets caught on the outside curb. And Enzo, after all of that good work from the early stages of the race and all of that desync that potentially happened early on, Enzo there down in 15th through no fault of his own in terms of a spin.
Yeah, that is such a shame for Enzo. Was starting to work his way forwards, but yeah, just caught off guard on the exit of the corner. Got on the power too early and spun. It's so easy to do at Luffield, but yeah, it's such a shame for Enzo. Really bad race. It's been a horrible race so far for VRT as a team. They've really struggled in this race, of course, with Artem having that jump start and now Enzo dropping down to the back of the field. That is such a shame. Yeah, Nolly Casino as well. Big moment he had to avoid Julian. Well, pretty much, I don't think he wanted to go for the overtake. He just had to avoid the Red Bull in front because Julian completely missed the corner and was just kind of stuck in the middle of the road, not really going anywhere. So Nolly Casino had to really back off to make sure he didn't run into the back of the Red Bull. So yeah, a lot of drivers at the moment really struggling at the start of this race. I don't know whether they've just got too used to the casting qualifying and the grip they have, and now they've put the hards on, they have no grip and they're all really struggling, especially Leo here. P5 has really dropped off the back of this leading group now. He's 1.7 seconds behind Heider. He's got a gap behind, so he's got no threat behind, but he's kind of falling into a little bit of no man's land now is Leo currently in that P5. Baki as well has used up pretty much all of his ERS trying to keep up with the 2 Alpha Tauris, and he's dropped out of range. So that's kind of a double-edged sword, isn't it? You burn all your ERS trying to keep up, and then when you do lose it, you have no ERS to be able to keep up in a straight line, and you end up falling further and further behind. So Baki here again in a little bit of a difficult position. Zerpek now gets a track limits penalty as well. What is going on? What is going on tonight? This is a really bizarre race. All these drivers that we expect to have really clean and strong races are really struggling all of a sudden in this race. Zerpek has now got 8 seconds of penalties and we're only 6 laps in. It's been a bizarre race so far. I think there's something in the air at Silverstone.
Yeah, definitely so. There is something definitely in the air. It's because you live 15 minutes away from the track, I think. That's why it is. Oni Katsuni on the back of Julian, 6th and 7th position. Oni Katsuni on the back of Team Mentor's man is catching quite quickly on the run down in towards Stowe, but he's not going to get the job done in turn 15. Somebody that might, there was Pappy, and he is saying to Zenon, who's your Pappy? Pappy is Boonies into 11th, Zenon there in 12th, Spies are there in 13th. You'll get that if you've been watching Ray Ripley and Dominic Mysterio on WWE. Aiden probably is shaking his head and doesn't know what I'm on about, but Enzo on the back of Pepe to the inside line of turn number 16 into the Vale, and Pappy has actually gone for a spin. So Pappy, unfortunately, I think the pun that I intended has came back to bite him.
I think it was too busy cringing at the pun to focus on the race that was going on, unfortunately. Yeah, and I had no idea what you were talking about. Too busy watching Drag Race to know what's going on in wrestling, if it even was wrestling. But yeah, Pappy, that's a shame. That is a real shame for Pappy. A little bit of a spin there. Again, it's really bizarre. There's only Oliver now running on the medium compound tyres that's in any sort of comfortable position, but he is 4 seconds behind Oni Kazune now. The top 7 are miles ahead of the rest of the field at the moment, and Oliver on those, and speaking of Oliver, has just got a track limits penalty at Luffield. So, yeah, I'm very shocked at what is going on in this race. The track limits at Silverstone, they can be brutal at times. There's definitely a few corners that you will see mistakes. I think obviously Cops and Stowe, 2 that definitely spring to mind straight away as corners that you're going to get potential track limits warnings. But other than that, there's not huge amounts of track limits discrepancies you can get at Silverstone. So a lot of drivers must be taking far too many liberties early on, struggling with a bit of grip and paying the price for it as further up the field Mane Kitsune thinking about a move here on Julian down the back straight. Is he going to be close enough on the inside to Stowe? He's got the inside line. Can he get the move done? Down the inside of Julian, yes, he does. Julian doesn't fight it too hard, although he's going to try and get it back on the exit. Taps the back of the hat and just kind of pushes him on and says, go on, go forward and leave me to it. I think Julian was struggling quite a bit with grip. He was falling further and further away from Leo. Kitsune looked a bit more comfortable, so Kitsune is through and up into 6th. What a start to the race Kitsune has had. He was kind of nowhere in qualifying, wasn't he? And he's now up. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he is up quite a few places. I'm just double checking actually. He is now up 8 places in this race. Zorzo's up 12, so Zorzo has had an incredible start. Started dead last in this race and is currently in 8th. So yeah, quite a few position changes in this race. And then of course you look to the back of the field in Ruti, Artem and Erpet down 14, 13 and 17 places respectively. So yeah, really chaotic start to this race. The only driver, by the way, that is still in the position they started in is Stefano. That's how crazy these first 7 laps have been.
It has been very crazy indeed. Zen on the back of Spies is trying to get the job done down the straight. Drag race, by the way, is not a bad thing whatsoever. Everyone can watch that on thing. Stefano out on top just in second. Backy there in third. Petty as well on the back of Geordie. You mentioned that Oliver. Oliver, I think, has been quite new. I think it's only 2 weeks since he actually turned his racing line up. So this is actually his second week, basically, on no assist. So he's doing a fantastic job. Obviously, he hasn't got the pace, but as the, especially with the new game coming up in... Do I say when a new game is coming up? No, I'm not. Oliver on the back of Zorzo. I think his focus, though, what I'm trying to say, is going to be on the new game. His pace will be there, I'm sure, on the new game. See, the PGS man doing a fantastic job. Still, of course, a part of the TTG team. This is the first event, actually, for PGS. And speaking of PGS, here comes Pepe to the inside line of Geordie. In towards Stowe. Just about gets the job done. Bit of muscle out there from Pepe. The Dutchman turning into 13th. And then Geordie there in 14th, doing a very good job. Keki there saying EML and Coulter. Yeah, EML and Coulter was a very good race indeed. Enzo, after his spin into the pit lane to the VRT man, is the first one to come in to a pit stop, or a first unforced pit stop, of course, with the drive-through penalties that we had early on. Geordie's just picked up a 3-second penalty out of turn number 1, and Julian is still all over the back of Bonnie Kitsune. Coming out of Aintree, he's got a phenomenal run on the car, and the Hassman is going to be behind here, because Julian passes him down the straight, down Wellington, and in towards turn number 6 of Brooklyn. Julian Thurney's into 6th.
Yeah, back up into 6th is Julian. I think for these two, it's not really too much of a worry. They just seem to be in a fight for 6th and 7th between the two of them, with nothing else really to fight for at the moment, because there's quite a gap in front and quite a gap behind, so that they're just kind of sat battling themselves. They don't want to lose too much time, of course. Also is just ever so slightly catching them and has a little bit more ERS to play with than especially Julian, so it's also potentially try and close in on this gap in front and try and bring some of them with them. I'm not quite sure, by the way, I don't know if we mentioned it, if we saw it, but Spies has had a bit of a poor start to this race as well. Started 8th, he's now down to 11th, so I don't know if we missed a spin potentially, or whether he was caught up in some incident on the opening lap, but I think I've completely missed what's happened to Spicer, but you would expect, considering where the likes of Leo and Hein Heider are, you would expect with a clean start Spicer to be at the front. It says more side-by-side between Julian and Onik Kitsune, and Julian still holds on to P6 for the time being, as Andretti caps off so far what is being an appalling race, unfortunately for ELT. They are really struggling.
Marlon saying, by the way, in the chat, focus on the next game is going to be exactly the same game. It is going to be exactly the same game, yeah. But it is going to be a rehashed version of the new game, which is what I can say. But Oni Kitsune on the back of Julian, still trying to get this job done. P6 and P7, they're fighting very aggressively, I've got to say, for this battle for P6 and 7. They don't realise that Zorzo was 3 seconds in behind, I don't think, and Zorzo is beginning to catch now. Oliver is now beginning to lose that pace on that set of medium compounded tyres. The sun now annoyingly gets onto my computer and gives me absolute terrible viewing of the action. Stefano leading the way just in second, Backy there in third. There was a comment a little bit earlier on as well, I think it was from Felix, if I'm not mistaken, from NLR. He did mention the threat of rain in the race, the cloud cover already beginning to build over the circuit, especially through the first sector. Now coming through the middle sector at Stowe. Doesn't look too bad through here, but especially through the first sector, the cloud cover beginning to build over the circuit. Normally, when the when the weather conditions change around here, they change rather quickly, and in around 3 or 4 laps time, we could potentially see that in terms of the weather changing, in terms of the track evolution, of course, getting a little bit worse. As Oli Kitsune runs wide there, coming through Magnus and Beckett, has got a really good run, though, on the back of Julian. His car has got absolute jet power on that car. I don't know what the hassle has been on. My word, to the outside line, in towards Stowe. If he gets this move done, this will be brilliant. It's almost as if he's been shot out of a cannon. For Julian there and second, Oni Kitsune in 7th, and Oli Kitsune, I think there's the definition of 0-0 rings right there.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's something, he's definitely running something that's definitely tuned to more race than the qualifying, maybe why we saw him qualify a little bit far down. But yeah, that is a rocket ship in a straight line, is that has. That is incredibly fast. I know that Julian doesn't have that much ERS and he doesn't have a tow from another car, but either way, that was from a mile back on a very short straight. So yeah, Kitsune has definitely got a good car in a straight line, and that will help him later on if he has to defend this course as well. So yeah, definitely something to look out for there for Kitsune. He's got another run here onto the Wellington straight. We'll see if he can get enough of a run as Erpek gets another penalty now down in 18th. This time around down the Wellington, not much of a gain for Oni Kitsune. He stays behind, but still running 6th and 7th. This also is ever so slightly closing in and dragging Oliver with him. But if we are going to see this rain, that makes me even more curious as to why people started on the medium compound tyres. If it is going to potentially rain in this race, why would you put yourself on a tyre that's not going to get to the end? So I'm not quite sure. Some of these hard runners may pit for a set of mediums and just go and then hope that the rain doesn't come too early, or some of them may just stay out with the hards and go to the end. The hards around this track should go to the end of the race with not really that much of an issue. So some drivers may stay out for the rain, some drivers may pit for the mediums. Either way, we'll wait and see. But it's really spreading out in the front of the field. It's just a race between the two FVR drivers at the moment. Baki's all on his own in third with no ERS. He's 1.6 seconds off the lead and 2.2 seconds ahead of Heinheider. Leo is now slightly closing back in on Heinheider, so Leo trying to make it a 3-4 here for the Alpine team. But yeah, Oni Kitsune and Julian still continuing their fight. Oh!
Julian into the back of Oni Kitsune, coming in towards Vale, pretty much mirroring actually Verstappen and Vettel back in the day around here. I think it was 2019 if I'm not mistaken. Oni Kitsune, Julian just completely messed up his braking point on the outside curb, got caught on that outside curb. Oliver has gone, I think, into the pit lane, so he's one of the first into the pits for the PGS team. Also into the pit lane, I believe, is also Pappy, if I'm not mistaken. Pappy is into the pit lane. There's been a spin out the final corner from Artem. Julian, though, as he has a huge snap of overseer coming out of turn number 4, and that's going to bring Oni Kitsune into 6th position. Current penalty situation, by the way. I know you guys might want to see this. Julian on 3, Toby on 3, Geordie on 3, Erpek on 11, Oliver on 11, Pappy on 6, and Andretti there on 9 seconds worth of penalties. There is a battle further down the field as well, beginning to develop. Peppy on the Peppy Vogel on the back of Xenon. Xenon there doing a good job for Team Mentalism in 11th position. Will be a little bit out of position, of course, when the drivers do decide to come into the pit lane. And do you know what? Peppy Vogel might not wait because he gets a phenomenal run coming through Wilker on the run towards Cops Corner. Rides the curb, does my ears in, I've got to say, with the riding on the curb there. For Peppy Vogel, all on the back of Xenon. This could be potentially the next move. Joachim there as well with Stefano and Justin for the FBR team. If I was in their shoes, I want to see a battle between these two, and I want to see them battle both individually, which I think will be fantastic. It's what you guys, I'm sure, want to see as well, instead of the team game out on track, as Toby is letting through Spicer. So Spicer through and he's into 9th. Toby there down in 10th, and Toby must be coming in the pit lane if that has happened. No, he doesn't. Xenon is in. Peppy is also into the pit lane. Rain's still not falling out on track from what I can see on my camera angle, but lap 13 out of 26, weirder things have happened.
Yeah, weird things have happened as well. So the rain doesn't look far away, so I'm kind of surprised to see some of the hard runners in. Richard Hullett's into the pit lane as well. I'm kind of surprised by that for Richie Hullett. If I were Richie Hullett, especially considering the fact that he's had a drive-through, I would stay out and hope for the rain and hope that the rain causes carnage later on and that he can benefit from that, especially if other hard runners pit for a set of mediums. He stays out and the rain comes and they have to switch to inters. He's gained back a lot of the time he lost with the drive-through. So I'm kind of surprised to see Richie Hullett stay out to come in that sense, in that way. So kind of interesting. We'll see what, if anything, comes of it. But either way, not quite convinced that that's the right strategy call there for Ruti at this point in the race. The rain surely isn't far away at this point with how quickly it's clouded over as Andretti has retired in the pit lane. I'm kind of not surprised. Andretti's had a rough race. It's been a rough race for ERT as a whole. They were 19th and 20th before that retirement. So yeah, not a great race sadly for them, and that's our first retirement of the race 13 laps in. Considering how carnage-stricken and crazy this race has been, I'm amazed that that's our first retirement. But yeah, it's been a mad race. It's been a really mad race as we're seeing, I think, potentially move him. Yeah, Justin's into the pit lane then from 2nd position. Geordie with another penalty. By the way, Kitsune and Julian's battling. They've battled so hard that they've been caught by Zorzo. So, and actually, Kitsune is into the pit lane, so Kitsune is in as well. I'm, again, not convinced by these earlier pit stops, especially if there's potentially rain coming. I don't understand why you wouldn't want to stay out, especially around a track like Silverstone. The pit lane here is so long. I don't think it's going to be worth it. If it rains, say, in 5 laps' time, you're going to benefit so much by staying out these extra 5 laps.
Yeah, it's a 30-second plus pit lane around here as well. Justin into the pit lane onto a set of medium compound tyres suggests to me that the cloud cover over the circuit is only going to be more overcast as compared to a little bit later on in the race, where I think the sun is going to come out around lap 20, lap 21, and then it brings about a change in terms of the track temperature. That's what I'm thinking at this current stage. I mean, it'd be foolish, honestly, for the drivers to come in. Oliver has got the right mind, though. He's on that sort of hard compound of tyres. He's going to be ahead of Spicer, I think, coming out the pit lane as well. Spicer on the right-hand side is actually side by side with Xenon coming out of the pit lane as well, and Xenon there, and Peppy Vogel are ahead. So Peppy also ahead, and actually with Peppy, looks to the inside line on Xenon, try to look to the inside line in toward the loop, and then now coming through Aintree at turn number 5 on the run down the Wellington Straight once again. Of course, a former airfield circuit here at Silverstone, trying to break the toe desperately as Oliver. Clearly got no pace on that sort of hard, but it is quite smart. There is going to be rain in the race. He is going to be on the better tyres towards that rain period. Oh my word, as Peppy Vogel looks to the inside line. Oliver trying to pull off the strategy call. Stefano there, and in the end, PGS, whatever that was, it's worked. Peppy Vogel through. For now, at least, Oliver's trying to get boxed in here. Xenon to the inside line. They're going to be side by side coming out of that cops, and that hasn't worked from Oliver's perspective. I think that was a box effect happening there from the PGS boys. Peppy there through, and he's into 12th. He is the quicker man. Don't blame him for that happening. But then again, I have that opinion where I really don't like to see that out on track, and especially for my own team as well. I think that could have been done a lot cleaner.
Yeah, it was a good move from Peppy Vogel, but yeah, to do it in the middle of Luffield is definitely very interesting. It would have been better to do it at a different point of the circuit. I think Xenon was a little bit caught out by it and almost ran straight into the back of Oliver there. So it was risky. It worked in the end. Oliver's gone straight into the back of Xenon. He's gone straight into the back of Xenon and spun, so that's not great either. But yeah, it's just, I think it was the wrong point of the track to do it. It's the right mindset, definitely, but just maybe not the best execution. But they've somehow got away with it, although Oliver's just had his spin. So not great. As we've seen, our leader in Stefano is in. He's come back out just ahead of his teammate Justin. Backy's also pitted on that lap as well, and he is now 3.5 seconds behind the two FDR drivers. So the only leaders now that have stayed out are Heinheider and Leo, who were 4th and 5th. Do either of them take the risk and go to the rain? I think if you're Heinheider, I think you've got to. I think you've got to take the risk here. I think you know that without anything crazy happening to Stefano, Justin, and Backy, they are locked in for the top 3 spots in this race. It is pretty obvious that they are locked in for the podium spots. Why not try something different? Go something a little bit crazier. Or maybe they pit Heinheider and keep Zorzo out. I don't know. So actually, Zorzo's coming in. So Zorzo's in, Leo's in, Heinheider stays out another lap. If I'm Heinheider, I'd stay out and hope that the rain brings some intermediate conditions and he wins this race. So I think if you're Heinheider, do it. Split the strategy between the 2 cars and keep it staying out.
Well, let's see if the QRT boys are listening to my co-commentator here in the chat. They're probably not, to be fair. But you never know. You never know. The stream might be coming in very useful, I think, for the QRT team at this stage. Justin, by the way, is on the back of Stefano. Backy as well is off the pace now compared to the front 2. As Justin, in fact, has just picked up a 3-second penalty. So now Backy is about 3.2 seconds off coming through turns 1 and 2 at Albion Farm. And Justin there in 6th is doing a fantastic job, but now Stefano ideally needs to pick up a 3-second penalty as Heinheider. Commentator's curse has just spun coming out of Luffield.
I do love a commentator's curse, but I didn't expect it to be that immediate, if I'm completely honest. That is such a shame for Heinheider. He's still leading, but I think now more than ever, now you have to stay out, now that you've spun. If you pit now, you've just dropped loads of places in time. So I think now you have to stay out at this point, even with that spin. So, yeah, that's a shame for Heinheider, but all is not lost. Rain could still come and save his race, but, yeah, a bit of a mistake there. And I think if you're like Julian, Toby and Geordie, you've not got the pace today, you've got penalties, stay out, risk it, see if the rain works. I think you've got to say, especially for someone like Geordie, whose race has been kind of chaotic so far, you've got to expect them to try and stay out as Heinheider's into the pit lane. And I think baffled is an understatement. This race has truly concerned me, if I'm completely honest.
It honestly has. It honestly has. And I think, yeah, with QRT boys, it might be like opposite day or something. They're just trying to do the opposite of what the commentators are actually saying. He goes on to set a medium compound of tyres, which is going to get him to the end. But where on earth is he going to come out? I think, if I'm not mistaken, he's going to be around, actually, his teammates sort of area, I think. Oni Kitsune, Zolzo, that sort of area is where I'm looking at. They're coming out through the final couple of corners. I think he's ahead of Oni Kitsune here, coming out the pit lane. Coming towards the end of the pit lane, he's coming out of the pit lane now, and he's miles ahead of Oni Kitsune. That is not a bad call at all from Heinheider. clearly not listening to my co-commentator on the right-hand side of me, but Heider there ahead of Oni Kitsune, out of DRS range as well. He will get those tyres up to temperature by the time they get through to Cops. In 8th position, considering he has had a pretty decent race up until that spin would have put him 7th. He would have been ahead of Leo, and he would have been ahead by around 3 or 4 seconds as well. So Heider has only lost 1 position in the whole face of it. Not a bad thing to come into the pit lane at all. Geordie picks up a 3-second penalty. Oliver, by the way, is going for a set of softs, clearly indicating that it is going to be dries towards the end of the race. Otherwise, there could be rain towards the end of the race, and he's going now for the fastest lap before the rain actually begins to fall out. In fact, that could be another thing. But Heider there in 8th, doing a fantastic job. Julian, Toby and Geordie currently out on track. There's no punctures currently for the hard runners, but there could be puncture territory incoming if they are going to go on that set of soft compounded tyre. But the front 3 currently stay out, and I think, probably from a GSP perspective, more importantly, their goal is to hold up the FVR boys and to get them to fight. That's what I would think, because Backy there in 6th, he might be 5 tenths per second off in terms of the pace around the last couple of laps. But compared to Justin Stefano, he is doing a relatively decent job, considering he's in no man's land. He is actually keeping up pretty much the pace on them, just a couple of tenths off.
Yeah, not too bad for Backy pace-wise, like you say. He's not doing too bad a job. He's just a couple of tenths off. It's a shame he's lost all that touch in the pit stop phase. But yeah, he'll be hoping that the FVR drivers have a bit of a struggle trying to get through this pack of cars in front, and he'll hope that they get held up a little bit and brings it back into penalty range so that it's not an FVR 1-2 in this race. But yeah, and Heider in the end, like I say, he only lost out in 1 position on track in the end, but he's definitely lucky in that sense that this race has been as chaotic as it has been, because he would have lost far more if this was a fairly normal race. But again, yeah, I'm just not convinced that this was. I think he should have potentially waited for the rain. We'll see if the rain does actually come. I mean, we never know. The rain may not come. By the way, for anybody saying in the channel that it may be a puncture, I'd be amazed if that was a puncture for Heider. If it was, he had burned through those hard tyres very quickly, because the hard tyres around Silverstone can pretty much do a full race distance without a puncture. So yeah, I'd be amazed if Heider got a puncture that early into the race. So I think that was just genuinely a spin on his own on the exit of Luffield, which is fairly easy to do. We've seen people spin there already in this race. So yeah, and there you can see now Julian, Toby and Geordie all staying out. You can very clearly tell they're staying out hoping for the rain. So I think for them it's a fair cop. It's their only way that they're going to get a top 10 finish in this race is by staying out hoping for the rain. And Stefano's basically pushing Geordie through the final corner. He's got so much more grip, but of course turn 1's not really the place to do it. You would imagine he's potentially going to send it up the inside here at turn 3. Will he get close enough to send it down the inside? Actually, he's going for it. Geordie leaves him the space. Fair play to Geordie actually there, recognising that he's not in the same fight. He's letting go. He doesn't want to lose too much time himself either. So Stefano's got the inside line. He's doing. Crucially, Stefano will also get DRS and Toby as well. So not lost out too much. Nice driving there from Geordie to let Stefano feel without too much of a fight. Justin is through as well, so Geordie down to 5th.
Yeah, great driving there from Geordie. He could have easily battled them, and easily, with that driver's instinct, I think, easily battled them and then try and hold them up for Backy to come a little bit later on in the race. Toby, though, is going to try and do that to Stefano. However, he's going to be blazing around the outside of Woodcote, and I think the Aston Martin's going out of the way. So Toby gets out of the way. The GSP man, in the end, in terms of the early title fight, they could have held up the FVR boys. But in the end, fairness, I think, wins over at the end of the day, and Toby there in 4th. Doing a good job, still expecting that rain to come out on track. The rain is still not falling out on track, looking through my very dirty glasses, I'm going to say, which nobody needs to know about. Julian leading the way, Stefano there in 2nd, Justin there in 3rd. Julian, though, leading the way. He needs to hope that the rain is going to come with the cloud cover bit still over the circuit. Normally there's a 10-15 minute window period, I think, for the rain, as actually Geordie is into the pit lane. So Geordie into the pit lane. I'm assuming, because he's coming into the pit lane, this will be for a set of soft compound tyre. Zolzo and Oni Kitsune are side by side in towards Stowe, and Zolzo gets the job done on Oni Kitsune. Oni Kitsune tries to cut back underneath him on the outside line. Now in towards Bale and Club. This could be very, very close indeed from the Haasman to try and get this job done. And this will be good as the Mercedes spins, coming out to the final corner, and through goes Oni Kitsune surely to the inside line as Oliver has retired out on track. Calls a safety car. Oni Kitsune is ahead, and that is a safety car. It is a safety car out on track, and Zorzo in the end is ahead of Oni Kitsune, which I think is the wrong call, because Oni Kitsune, in clearly what I was right on board with him, was ahead, coming out through the final corner. Yellow flags were out just before that, but Zorzo in 8th, Oni Kitsune in 9th, Zorzo ahead, and the game clearly broken.
I think that's just a case of poor Codemaster's coding there, unfortunately for Kitsune, because he definitely was ahead, but as soon as the safety car came out, only Kitsune braked, and Zorzo didn't, and Zorzo went straight back past him, and the game didn't pick up on it, so Zorzo has gained that one. Kind of illegitimately, but I mean, that's more on the game than on Zorzo. That's just one of those things, unfortunately. Kitsune unlucky there, as into the pit lane comes Enzo and Urpek. Not a surprise, they're in for a set of soft compound tyres, but this ruins Julian's chances in this race. This completely ruins Julian's race. He will come in for a set of softs, you would imagine, but you saw that, we saw he was definitely waiting for the rain. He was hoping it would stay green and the rain would come, but this has kind of taken that strategy out the window, unfortunately for him. He should come out, though, in a fairly good position on the fresh set of softs, so that'll be good for him. We'll see if any others come in. The two, I'm not surprised, the two FDR drivers, they both stay out. Toby's in, and Toby speeds somehow into the pit lane under the safety car. Baki stays out as well. None of the net leaders in this race, you would assume, are coming in. No, Leo staying out. Heider is staying out as well. So they're all in. Julian's on inters. Julian is on intermediate tyres. Now, I can understand waiting for the rain, but then pitting for the intermediates under a safety car when the rain's not coming down is another thing. So that's interesting. He's going to have to hope it absolutely chucks it down. The safety car is going to be out for a while because the pack is fairly spread out, but he's going to have to hope for some immediate rain very quickly. Otherwise, he is going to be a bit of a nuisance at the safety car restart. He's out in 6th, so if it does rain, he's in a very good position. But I don't think he is. As Zorzo has done the same, so I'm very nervous for this restart. Spice has done it. Ruti Hullet has done it as well. They're all doing it. So it's not raining yet. There's no rain coming down. So it must be a kind of rain is imminent kind of aspect of this race. They're saying that rain is imminent. But even if the rain is not hard enough, what if the rain comes down and the rain's not hard enough for intermediate tyres? There's not that long left in the race now. So I don't know. People are saying in the chat it's already raining, but it's not. It's not raining. By what we're looking at, it is not raining right now. There is no rain coming down. So there's absolutely no rain at the moment. There's nothing on the halo. So unless somebody is seeing rain and it's on their end of it and it's not raining, that's the only thing I can think of. It is not raining right now.
It is not raining right now. It looks like, because it's so dark out on track. And to be fair, actually, there is a little bit of a rain spot on my camera angle with Urpek down in 17th position coming through Sector 1. There was only one spot though, and I think, unless the drivers are 30, 45 seconds ahead of us in terms of the actual game, and then being ahead of us out on track, I can only assume we're going to see the rain a little. It's going to trigger a little bit later, maybe on the spectate cams, if it is going to rain, but it's a big, big gamble. Julian in 6th is going to be the big one. Is he going to come back in the pit lane to set a dry compounded tyre? And if so, is he going to keep on gambling? As Leo is in, and the rain has started.
The rain has started now, so it wasn't raining, it was just incredibly dark. It is now raining. Toby spent again, and has crashed into Kitsune on the way into the pit lane. So they're all coming in for intermediate tyres now. Now the question is, does it rain hard enough for intermediate tyres? And if it doesn't, they're in a spot of bother again. This is up in the air. It's up in the air. I have no idea. People are saying it is raining. It is raining now. Yeah. But a minute ago, at the start of the lap, when everybody was putting intermediate tyres on in the pit lane, it was not raining. There was no rain coming down. So I don't know. I'm truly perplexed by this race. Perplexed is definitely the right word. I go on board though with Baki, and it is not raining heavy at all. It is really not raining that heavily. So I don't know what the right call is here. It's definitely a gamble either way. Either way is a gamble here. So I think if you're Stefano and Justin, you've got to hope the safety car comes in this lap so you can get any laps on a dry track in as quickly as possible. But if you're those on the inters, you hope it stays out for at least another lap so that the rain can come down. So I don't know. I really don't know what's going to happen here. I mean, at this point, by the way this race is going, only Kitsune is going to win this race. I have no idea. I have no idea what is going on. This is probably one of those most bizarre races I think I've ever commentated on.
And for more bias, I think Peppy Vogel might win this race there in 6th position. Stefano the leading the way from Justin there in 2nd, Baki there in 3rd. I'm right on board with Baki. Yeah, the rain is not coming down. Normally you see the little yellow dots on basically the tyre surface, and there's nothing like that at this stage, which indicates to me as if it's going to rain and it's going to change immediately. I think it's going to be the case, Aiden, where it's going to be maybe final lap of the race, DRS is final 2 laps of the race, DRS is disabled, and then the inters begin to come into play. And if that is the case, Julian, if he is there when the safety car restart, I think the safety car, I'm hoping, is going to stay out this lap just for the benefit of everyone ahead. Stefano, Justin Backy, with Julian in fifth, he is going to be hoping above hope that it starts raining very heavily on this next lap, on lap 23 or 26. He nearly goes for a slight spin there coming through Stowe, but the rain is not really impacting on the track surface at the minute. It does change quite quickly around here, though, at Silverstone after the rain does begin to fall as Toby, oh my word, and there's been all sorts of, I think it's Toby actually into the pit. So Toby is into the pit lane. Is that, I wonder, with a bit of damage from the instant with Oni Katsuni, potentially?
I think so. I think that potentially is. Only Katsuni, unfortunately for Katsuni, he had to serve that 5 second for that in the pit lane, so he's actually lost out quite badly as Only Katsuni and all of that mess. But I'm baffled. I have no idea. I have no idea what to think. Set of softs, yeah. Set of softs for Toby, potentially. Yeah, it is set of softs. So he's thinking the rain's not going to come down hard enough. And if it doesn't come down hard enough, that is an inspired call from Toby. If the rain doesn't come down hard enough, that is a smart call from Toby. That's only if the rain doesn't come down hard enough. I think for the two FDRs and Backy, they are gutted the safety car didn't come in the end of that lap. They are very gutted it didn't, as Toby's coming out the pit lane. We'll see what he's driving like through the opening part of the lap. We'll see what the grip looks like. Of course, the tyres aren't going to be hot, but we'll see what they look like as he comes through the farmer village. It doesn't look that bad. It really doesn't look that bad for the slicks. The slicks are fine when Toby's coming out of the pit lane, but if I'm on this racetrack right now, looking at this racetrack right now, I would rather be on slicks. To me, this looks like the rain's not coming down hard enough to warrant any sort of intermediate.
Yeah, I mean, offline coming down in towards Cox, it looks like there's little yellow dots basically on the right-hand side of the track on the dirty side. And coming through Maggots and Beckett's, it looks pretty much bone dry. This is going to be risk and reward, quite literally. Toby, by the way, is absolutely sped on to the back of the safety car, clearly indicating it's still dry compound tyres. Dirk Black saying in the chat it was to serve up as 5 seconds. You're correct, it was to serve up as 5 seconds worth of penalty, so that gets that removed. If all hell breaks loose ahead of him from Zozo downwards to Urpek, he could be picking up P9 by the end of this race. Safety car, though, is in this lap. 3 laps of racing to the checkered flag. Whether or not DRS will be enabled in the final lap of the race remains to be seen. We are in for one hell of a ending here in the NLR team event for round 2 at Silverstone. Stefano leads the way. He's the virtual Burmanander. He's now the virtual safety car. And the FER team, I think, will be hoping to want to get on with this and try and string out the field in behind. Intermediate compound tyres with Julian is going to be a stretch. Looking at the rain, it looks like it's actually easy now on track. And there goes Stefano. Stefano now goes in towards Vale. Coming through 16 and 17, already on the right, already on towards the line. And Stefano leads onto lap 24. It catches the curb on the inside line, just in there in second. Backy there in third. And Inter's currently not working. It might be the crossover period rather than anything. Hein Heider there on the back of Backy. Julian slow coming through turn number 1. Rain is stalling fall on the camera angle as well. But there goes Pepe to the inside line. And Pepe gets moved on Julian. Through into P5 he goes up towards Village through the loop. And Pepe through and he's into 5th, Julian there in 6th, but it is almost at the crossover period potentially between these compound tyres. Zenon having to fight with Julian as well. Is Julian going to try and fight this? Zenon to the inside line, gets the job done. Inters are not too far off, to be honest, but it still dries at this stage. The final leads, Justin in 2nd, Backy there in 3rd, and Hein Heider's all over the back of Backy in towards Cox.
Yeah, Hein Heider here. You've got to think as well for Hein Heider, if he can get this moved on, that's 2nd place because Justin's got that 3-second time penalty. So Hein Heider here really fighting for us. He's on the podium as it stands already, but he could get 2nd place in this race away from Backy if he can get the move done. Where has Xenon come from in this race, by the way? He's all of a sudden in a net 4th. I have no idea what's going on in this race. Absolutely crazy. And yet, with only 2 laps to go when we cross the line, unless it absolutely chucks it down in the next couple of laps, the Inters are not the right tyre to be on. They're not fast enough. They're really not. Toby's already working his way through the field. He's past Peck and Enzo. He's just past Pappy in the middle of Mackett and Beckett. The Inters are not the faster tyre. You should have stayed on the slicks. Unless it absolutely chucks it down in the next 2 laps. That is the only way these Inters are going to work. But the rain is not coming down heavy enough. Rudy Gullit trying to get a move down the inside of Spicer into the Vale Club chicane. He's got the inside line. He's going to cut back. Yeah, he's going to cut back on the inside and get the inside line for turn the final corner. Lovely move from Ruti, gets the move done. Arten's going to try and follow through as well into turn number 1. That's an audacious move. Is he going to keep down the inside? Yes, he is. Spicer runs him tight through the apex, but he holds the line. Spicer holds 11th for the time being. Arten's going to send it on the brakes down the inside. Spicer's being a little bit bullied here by the faster drivers. Arten trying to go around the outside. There's no grip, and there's more contact further down as Toby's trying to get past Leo into the injury corner. There's a limit of contact Off the road goes Leo. Toby should get through here. He does.
Oh.
Leo gets a penalty as well. They're coming back onto the track. Toby up into 13th. So him pitting for the soft compound tyres was the right move as well.
He is indeed, and that all, by the way, was actually getting around the outside of Oni Katsuni and then trying to dive down the inside line of Leo coming through Aintree. That would have been a brilliant move if he pulled it off in 2 for 1. He had to wait, of course, a corner down in towards Brooklyn, but here comes Toby again on the back of Artem, all over the back at this stage, and the soft compound tyres clear the tire to Beyond coming out of Cops, and Toby is already through the GSP, man. Absolutely blazing through. He's got his teammate ahead of him. He'll get out the way, I'm sure, coming through this complex with Maggots and Beckett's, but the rain is not impeding on this race surface at all. Here comes Geordie, by the way, on the back of Zenon as well. Geordie having a phenomenal race here for the ART team. In there in 6th. Julian there is holding everyone up, but he's there in 8th position. He's doing still a very good job, as now Arsene tries to dive it to the inside on and Spicer. It's going to get pretty hilarious going into the final final lap. DRS is now enabled out on track, which is the big thing. Still dry compound tyres out on track. The rain almost looks like it stopped actually out on track. It's Artem bullies Spicer off circuit there, coming out through the right-hander, and Spicer actually off the circuit, has to rejoin Oni Katsuni to the inside line at turn number 1. Going to try and get the job done, and he does. So Oni Katsuni back through, and he's into 14th. Intermediate still all over the place. The rain is still falling. Leo sends a dive bomb for the century to the inside line, and Artem tries to get around the outside in toward the loop. Just about loops it to the outside line. Oni Katsuni and Spicer side by side in the background as well. The Ferrari all out of shape. Artem, Toby ahead is going to get Ruti maybe down in toward Brooklyn. There's all sorts of carnage. Oni Katsuni has gone for a spin. In the background of shot, and there goes Toby around the outside onto the inside line now through Brooklyn's, now through Lovefield on the outside, gets the job done. Absolutely mad race this. Stefano leads Justin in 2nd, and Justin at the minute is hanging on by a very thin thread. It's 2.4 seconds, I think, the gap between himself and Heinharder. He needs to gain 0.6 of a second out of something to really gain onto this podium position. But Stefano, the FBR team, handled this race really on a silver platter from the troubles of NLR in the early stages with that drive-through penalties. Stefano, though, in towards the right-hander turn 15 at Stowe for the final time. It's going to be an FBR 1-2 on track. Toby going side by side with Zolzo down the straight as well. That will be one to watch, I'm sure. But Stefano coming through the final couple of corners. In the end, dry compound tyres win the race. And Stefano, the FBR, take the win. Justin there in 2nd. Is he going to get 3rd? No, Heinharder by 3rd, but I think it's only a couple of tenths of a second. It's 2.5 tenths. 2.5 tenths of a second separating them at the end of the race. Zolzo, by the way, did get the move done on Ruti. He jumps up to 7th with no penalties. Ruti in 8th with no penalties. My word, absolute unbelievable. As you can tell, my voice is going. Stefano takes the win from Baki there in 2nd. Baki for Juventus Racing, by the way. I did put him for P3. He did a phenomenal job there to score P2 out on track. The rain didn't fall heavy enough at the end of the day at Silverstone. It's just typically one of these drizzly days at the end of the day. Toby, with a very weird look, gets Driver of the Day awarded by the in-game fans. But the FBR team take a 1-2 out on track. They take a 1-4 in the end provisionally, with, of course, Stefano taking the race win. Justin dropping down with that penalty. Phenomenal race here at Silverstone. Yes, some of the driving stones might have been different further down the field, but that is racing at the end of the day. You're not going to have a race every single time that's going to be 100% perfect. But FBR, from their perspective, literally from turn number 1, it was 100% perfect for Stefano. He took the race win. Phenomenal drive, and phenomenal as well from Justin. He picked up that 1-2 out on track, but FER in the end, 1-4, and they gained big points on NLR.
Yeah, they do gain big points. They'll be gutted, I think, with that final safety car. Without that final safety car, it looked like it was going to be a 1-2 clean for them. So that final safety car cost them that result, but still a great result in the end. That 1-4 for Stefano and Justin dominated the proceedings today. Really, really great result. Great recovery as well from Heinharder after his spin to finish P3. Baki as well. Great race in P2. Was there or thereabouts the whole way through. And for the likes of Zorzo and Bruti, they finished 7th and 8th on the intermediate tyres. They're actually quite lucky that everybody else behind them was also on the intermediates. If anybody else had done what the GSP driver Toby had done and pitted for a set of softs under that final lap of the safety car, they would have dropped further and further down the field. So they're quite lucky. A lot of people committed to the inters. The inters were not the right call in the end, just not the correct call. If you were someone further down and you were on the softs, you could have benefited loads there, but unfortunately they didn't. And what a crazy looking leaderboard that is.
Zozo 20th up to 7th might get Driver of the Day potentially. It was a phenomenal race from his perspective. Stefano though does take the win. He said in the chat, do we want to give him an interview? I don't know how we can actually do it. Could you invite him in maybe into our call? I don't know.
I think I'd have to. I don't think I'd have to add them as a friend, unfortunately, on Discord, and I don't.
Ah.
Yeah, so that might take a while, if I'm completely honest, unfortunately.
I know I can smell food downstairs as well. It does smell very nice. I think I'm having something chickeny, so it is gonna be nice. My TV's about to turn itself off as well, so I'm gonna literally flick over because you do not want to see a black screen when my TV does decide to turn itself off. Phenomenal race though, Aiden. Fantastic to have you back in the commentary box for the first time, I think in months, quite literally. In the end, though, Stefano taking that race win does take the fight now to NLR after 2 rounds. And speaking of the next round of the championship, we go to Belgium. One of our all-time favourite tracks for commentary, that is for sure. On the 2nd of April, next week, of course, will be the Belgian Grand Prix. And Aiden, if it's anything to go by, FVR and NLR could perhaps see that battle out once and for all into round 3.
Yeah, they definitely could. It's been a bit of a weird start, hasn't it? LNR dominated the first round, and FER have dominated the second round, so we've not really seen them fight one another outright for a spot for that top spot. But Belgium's definitely one of those tracks we're going to see it. Belgium's a weird one, isn't it? It's a great track in real life. On game is a different story, but there's always great racing there. So yeah, Belgium will be an interesting one, and the rest of the calendar, I mean, is definitely going to be interesting. We've got a real mix coming up of circuits. So yeah, definitely going to be an intriguing one in Belgium, and hopefully we actually get an on-track fight between LNR and FER next time out to see which team is technically potentially the best team here. So it's going to be an interesting one, or maybe we'll see a completely new team dominate next time. You never know. We've seen Juventus right up there. They could end up dominating Belgium next time out. So you never know.
You never know, indeed. It is going to be very, very interesting. Harley apparently has sorted the comms box out, and Steph is actually in there. So I am going to hop foot it over to there. I will get you in, or you can just join, I think. But we will leave our call. We're going to literally hop over and we'll interview Stefano for the race win.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Right. Oh, right. That's yeah. You can still hear me, I think, on the stream. What we've got at the minute is a bit of a problem. We can't speak in the comms box, which is very, very strange indeed. Yeah, I don't know why we are muted, potentially. It is. There we go. Are we sorted? Right, I'm going to leave and then I'll rejoin. Hang on. No, it's still not working. We are currently muted, apparently. Still don't have permissions. No. Very, very strange. Everyone's just listening to the pure panic that is on my end, certainly. I'm going to join Commentalist back there. Goodness me, I don't know what was going on there. We haven't got permission to speak in the comments box, apparently, so I don't think there's going to be any interviews.
That's a shame. Yeah, that is a real shame. Discord is great most of the time until it isn't.
It is. Speak and connect is tick. You should be able to. Speak and connect is tick. Right, I'm going to try once more and then I'll rejoin you back. So keep this call up and I'll rejoin you back.
Let's give it a
try. Right. No, it's just muting me straight away. So yeah, it is. It is literally muting me straight away. Tick everything is what Jav is saying. But yeah, big thank you to everyone that tuned in, by the way, for tonight. I think the 50 of you that tuned in at one point. Fantastic to have. Commenters, of course, was alongside me in the commentary box. And something has just happened because I can suddenly hear myself. Steph, I think, is now in the commentary box. Commenters now can come in, I believe, to this commentary box as well. So we're going to try it now. Mr. Stefano, I think we should be working now. Is everything working and can you hear us?
Hello?
There he is. There he is. I can hear him. Commentators, are you here as well?
I'm also here as well. We finally got it working.
Fantastic. The go-to guys in the behind the scenes, Harley and Jav, working miracles there to get our voice channel working. Stefano, though, taking that race win out on track. It wasn't the easiest of starts, let's just face it, because the NLR boys jumped off the start. What was your reaction to that?
Yeah, my fingers almost slipped as well, as I saw the other guys already starting. So that made it pretty hard for me to just focus on the lights. But at the end, I still got a good start, so it was yeah, pretty good for me.
Yeah, and it was pretty plain sailing, I've got to be honest, from that perspective as well. Of course, I think Joachim was in charge in terms of the engineering, and he really didn't have to do much, I think, because you guys just controlled it out in front. Justin, of course, was the perfect wingman. You were pulling away from Backy. It looked pretty simple out on track, but that last safety car definitely threw a little bit of a spanner into the works.
Yeah, now this time Jeroen was engineering, but yeah, of course the safety car um, yeah ruined our 1-2 potential because we were gapping Baki out of just in his 3 second penalty gap. We were like 4 seconds or 2.5. And then the safety car came because someone behind crashed, so that was pretty unfortunate for us. But yeah, still 1-4. So it could have ended worse if it would have rained like for inter weather, but it stayed dry.
Yeah, it did stay dry at the end of the day. We worried as well with that rain obviously changing the complexion of the race. We worried about you being on the wrong strategy and staying out there, and then at the final 2 laps, just all hell breaks loose, and you see Inter runners passing you.
Yeah, I was worried because when we were behind the safety car and it started raining, I just crossed the pit entry lane, and at that moment I was pretty nervous, and because I thought that it would rain harder. But um, it's it rained, but it didn't really get wet enough um, to switch to the Inter. So I was pretty happy that I stayed out.
Yeah, it's typical northeast England weather. I think is what drivers have I think experienced out on track there in terms of drizzle, and it doesn't really wet the surface of the pavements up here in the north. Aiden, any questions?
I think mainly question for me, maybe for next time. I don't know if you're racing next time out, Stefano. Are you racing next time? Do you know?
I still don't know. Maybe uh, after a few days or before the race, like maybe
Yeah,
like Friday or something.
you maybe potentially know. But if you are racing, it is Belgium next time out. If you do end up racing, how is Belgium of a track for you? Do you think it's a track that you and FER as a team can succeed on?
Yeah, if I practice a bit more than like a day before it, then we're good. Then we're clear of the 1-2. But yeah, Belgium is strong track for me. So yeah, anything can happen there.
Yeah, definitely can happen, of course. And looking forward to the rest of the championship for FER. Obviously, FER are one of the favourites. And who would you say is a team that you're looking to try and beat mainly? Who do you think is your main competitor for the title as a team?
I think NLR because they're quite strong. Like in quali, they were P2 and P3. But yeah, because of that drive to Pen, they got out of the points, or I don't know where they finished, but not like in the top five. So I think they will be our rivals for this season.
Yeah, definitely look like it for the first 2 races. But yeah, congrats on the win today, Savannah.
Yeah, and go and enjoy your day because it is still the middle of the afternoon. Go and enjoy your day.
Thank you, you guys as well.
You are very welcome indeed. We have only got Stefano though in the interview room, which is totally fine. Hopefully the drivers the rest of the rest of the top three I should say do give us a little bit of a word in going in towards next week, of course, in Belgium at Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, of course, the most historic circuit, arguably on the Formula One calendar, the longest circuit on the F1 calendar as well. 7 kilometers in length, plenty of action to be had out on track. You guys are going to be in for an absolute treat next week in Belgium, and then of course we've got Hungary, Circuit of the Americas, Monza, Singapore, and a break week before, a break week after Monza. Then we've got Singapore starting in May, and then Brazil on Eurovision weekend to round off the calendar on the May 13th and 14th, of course, for Tier 2 and Tier 1. That rounds us up very neatly indeed. I really hope you enjoyed it. Big thank you, of course, Mr. Aiden Carter, for joining me in the commentary box. Delighted to be alongside you once again. Hopefully, not going to be the last time this season we're going to be in a commentary box together as well. And that is NLR Esports League Season 3, Round 2 done at Silverstone. We'll see you, of course, next week in Belgium. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, have a good day and goodbye.